The main heroine was sitting beside a woman who was dying right in front of her. This woman was her mother. She had thin hands and feet that were rotting alive. The girl sat and wept bitterly at that moment, and her mother, in her final moments, turned to her. She told Serena that she was very sorry. Then the woman asked the girl if she had the papers she had given her. The girl confirmed that she did. The mother told the girl that when she died, she must leave immediately. The heroine knew she was a daughter to whom life had granted little, and also a daughter who had been born to her for the second time. After that, the woman asked the girl to confirm what she had said. The heroine replied that she would indeed leave then. Finally, the mother smiled and told her dear daughter that she loved her very much. Immediately after she spoke these words, her heart stopped and her hand fell down. Then the heroine prepared to leave, as her now-deceased mother had said. At the same time, she thought that her own heart seemed to be slowly stopping as well. The girl also looked at the woman and wondered if this coldening woman was truly her mother. After all, in the main heroine's memories, she always shone with beauty and health. And in those moments when she called with her velvet voice to hug her, all fears literally vanished. Now, the only thing left for the girl to do upon leaving was to kiss her mother one last time. The girl thought that this was her mother, who had worried only about her until the very end. The girl also still remembers her first birth. So back then, she was looking at her mother dying from a terrible disease, and her mother's eyes were full of tears and despair. Then the heroine thought that it was her end too. But later, when she was in her mother's arms again, could she find the words to convey her feelings? The woman then called her Serena for the first time and said that she was her mother. The girl, in response, also greeted her sweet mother. The woman would whisper words of love into her ear and raised her with all her soul for 7 years. However, sometimes her mother was very lonely. Perhaps she remembered her when the girl was her first daughter. And now, she feels the same fear for her mother, who remains alone forever. All because the heroine is staying here. Being both the first and the second daughter, the girl was very grateful that this woman was her mother. All because her mother was truly hers. That very paper, which her mother gave her shortly before death, pointed the girl's way to the north. The main heroine didn't know how long she had wandered or where that paper led her. But she only knew that her mother had been a sorceress. That's why they had to search for a long time for a place where they could be safe. The girl didn't understand if they were on the run or why they were hiding. It was all unclear to her. Now the heroine thought that she really wanted that very paper to lead her straight to her mother. After her 2 lifetimes of wandering, the girl wondered if anyone had found her mother's body yet. The girl walked alone on the snow-covered road and wondered if her mother was sleeping peacefully. At the same time, she wondered what would happen if her mother was still lying there alone. Then the main heroine remembered her smiling face and became very sad. She looked at the paper that was guiding her and cried out for her mother. All because she was very sad and didn't understand where to go now. So it turns out that now she has nowhere to return home. A moment later, the girl lost consciousness, but a man caught her. Then the girl came to her senses, and he asked if she was awake. He also told the girl not to be afraid, as he thought she had gotten lost in the forest and decided to take her to a settlement. Then the stranger asked if she minded going to a doctor and finding a place to stay. The girl looked at him carefully and didn't answer. At the same time, she thought that her mother had told her not to trust the kindness of strangers. Further, the heroine said in a slightly frightened voice that she had no money to see a doctor. The stranger noted that they would go to a doctor he knew, and she wouldn't have to worry about money at all. The girl remarked that her mother said if she went with a stranger, she could get into trouble. The man smiled slightly and said that she must have a wonderful mother. However, he still hoped the girl would trust him now, all because he didn't want anyone else to die today. So he would take her to her mother after the doctor treated her. Then he said it was cold and windy here, so she should cover up. Then he drew her closer and covered her with some clothing. As a result, the girl felt a warmth emanating from him, similar to the warmth from her mother. After that, a short time passed, and the girl woke up somewhere else. Through her sleep, she heard someone addressing her. Also, in front of her, she saw what looked like her hair. At that, she was very frightened and thought this couldn't be happening. She had probably been discovered. Right at that moment, she remembered the words of her deceased mother. She always said that pink hair was rare. That's why Serena had to be careful so people wouldn't notice her hair color. So, her mother said she could be sold if she fell into the hands of bad people. Now the girl grabbed the man's hair and screamed for him not to do it. With tears in her eyes, she said they were mistaken, her hair wasn't pink, so they shouldn't take her. And what if the person whose head she grabbed told her to calm down? Because she had nothing to fear, she just needed to look at him. As a result, the girl let him go and looked carefully at the man in front of her. Strangely, he also had pink hair and ruby-red eyes. After that, the young man addressed the girl tenderly again, touching her face. Then he asked if her mother's name was, by any chance, Ariel. At that very moment, a woman with blue hair, who looked very much like the main heroine's mother, appeared before his eyes. So, she had large green eyes, exactly like the girl's now. The little girl didn't answer him, and the man immediately hugged her. Then he said he had finally found her. After that, the man raised his head and told the girl she should come with him. The girl said, "Julia," asking him to wait a second. Then she asked if he really knew her. The interlocutor said that was exactly right, and he knew her. Then the girl asked with confusion in her voice, "But who are you then?" The man said his name was Edwin Levashin, and it turned out he was her father. Then he said the girl couldn't even imagine how long he had been looking for her. Also, she simply had no idea what thoughts had haunted him all this time, but now he was truly happy. The girl looked at him carefully and thought, was this really her father? Edwin said he would explain everything in detail later, but for now, she only needed to know one thing: he was truly her father. At the same time, he understood it was hard to accept immediately. However, he asked her to take his word for it now. In due time, they would talk about everything and get to know each other better. When the main heroine met her father, she wanted to shower him with accusations and ask why he only appeared now. But she didn't have the heart to do so. This was because she got the feeling he could barely breathe. At that time, the girl didn't understand what had caused him so much pain. And that's why she couldn't blame him, as she didn't know the whole situation. Then the girl thought that if he had suffered as much as she had, then she could forgive him. So, the heroine looked at the man and said that she believed him. As a result, they hugged tightly, and the man thanked her for it. The girl thought she really wanted to know what kind of person he truly was. After that, a short time passed, and they went outside together. The girl was in the man's arms, and he said it was still frosty, so she should cover up. The heroine did as he said. At the same time, the little girl felt very awkward being next to someone she had just met. It was also very strange for her that every time this person stroked her, she got goosebumps. The heroine thought this might be because she had never met anyone else besides her mother. Her mother only took her to sparsely populated places and shielded her from the outside world. The girl wanted to ask her why, but couldn't, because her mother tried so hard to protect her. Her mother always hid her so other people wouldn't see her, and so she would be protected. That's why she asked her to sit in a secluded spot and apologized for it. So it turned out the woman raised her all alone. After all these memories of her mother, the main heroine immediately cried out that her mother was still in that house. So, she was lying there alone. The man told her not to worry about it. After that, he said with sadness that he had taken her mother to a place where she could rest in peace. He added that later he would take her there so she could see her. The girl thought, did he say then that he didn't want to see anyone die again today? The main heroine asked him how long he had been searching for the two of them. Edwin said he had been searching for them since the moment they disappeared. So, he had looked everywhere, and there was hardly a place he hadn't been during all this time. Finally, he reached the area where they lived, but the girl was no longer there. He only found the frozen body of his beloved there. After that, he hugged her and begged her to wake up, but it was too late. At that moment, the man couldn't think of anything at all. When he came to his senses afterward, he found a sheet of paper next to her. The girl thought, what sheet of paper? That couldn't be. Her father said it was a paper with a spell cast upon it. So he set off in the direction indicated on the paper, thinking it was his last chance to find her. But before he rode into the forest, the wind snatched the paper from his hands. The main heroine immediately understood why he ended up deep in the forest. She thought it must have been very scary. He must have felt so alone. Edwin continued to hug her and said he would tell her everything in detail when they got home together. It turned out there were many stories he wanted to share with her. The girl thought at that moment that she had such stories too. Still, the girl thought the story of her life with her mother would be quite interesting to him. It turned out only the two of them existed in the world. Their story was about how they loved and supported each other day after day. And after some time on the road, the man and his daughter reached a carriage, near which a crowd of people was waiting. A subordinate addressed the man and asked who this young lady was. Edwin said she was the princess, and they should head to the palace. The young man said he obeyed. After hearing all this, the girl was simply shocked. She heard words about His Majesty and that she was called princess, and it made her head spin. The man looked carefully at the girl's confused face and asked what was wrong, if she was hurt somewhere. They were already sitting in the carriage, and the girl asked about His Majesty. The man asked if she had a fever. Then he realized she had called him Your Majesty. He noted that she must be surprised, but she didn't have to call him that. He thought it would be better for her to simply call him Dad for now, but if it was too hard for her, he wouldn't rush her. At that very moment, the girl had hiccups, and the man said she needed to drink water for them. The heroine looked at him carefully and thought, "Is he really His Majesty?" She repeated this phrase several times in her head, being very shocked. The main heroine couldn't recover from the shock and immediately thought, was her father really the emperor ruling the country? At the same time, the girl thought that if that was true, then she remembered what her mother had told her. It turned out the emperor had 3 terrifying sons. Besides, she thought, didn't the empress die several years ago? The girl thought that her mother must have been a concubine. She thought perhaps her mother was a commoner who had gained the emperor's favor. A moment later, the main heroine realized her mother wasn't a commoner. Although her memories were blurry now, she was sure that in her first birth, she wasn't a commoner. Then she didn't understand why her mother had fled when she was pregnant with her. Could it be because her fathers from her past and current life were different people? It turns out the heroine didn't know so much, and she wondered if anything bad would really happen to her. After all, if her mother wasn't a concubine, then she was simply an illegitimate child. The girl wondered if they would hate her for that. After all, it turned out she would be the one who dared to intrude into the imperial palace. She was just thinking about the emperor's sons her mother had told her about. The heroine didn't know what to do. The mere thought made her shudder. And she wondered if she could even get along with her brothers. But she had nowhere else to go, and she would be content with little, rejoicing that she could at least live. At the very moment the main heroine was pondering all this, the carriage reached its destination. The girl was almost asleep and just hoped she wouldn't be thrown out. Another young man entered the stopped carriage. After that, this young man asked the main heroine's father if this was the child. The man said it was. The girl was asleep but heard someone talking. However, she realized she was hearing an unfamiliar voice. He told his interlocutor that he hadn't prepared a separate palace for her yet, so for a while she would live with him in the Palace of the Sun. The young man agreed to all this. Then he said the girl must be about 7 years old this week, so he didn't understand why she had such a tiny body. It felt like she could be blown away by a light gust of wind. The main heroine heard this and thought, did she really look that small? Her mother had lovingly told her to grow slowly, to do so like a young tree watered day by day. And thanks to her endless love, she basked in rays of happiness. Edwin said he thought out of habit that his palace needed, first of all, to meet with the head imperial physician and the head of the kitchen. Then the man told his daughter to sleep peacefully now. After all, Serena was now next to her dad, so she shouldn't worry about anything because she was his dear daughter. The moment the girl fell asleep, she felt flowers on her head. She wondered what they were doing there. Then she realized it was the time when she and her mother went to see the unopened spring flowers. She loved those that resembled the shade of her hair. In summer, they fanned each other with fans to escape the heat. They also loved eating corn together. In autumn, they collected fallen leaves and tried to roast sweet potatoes, which almost ended in a fire. The girl then shouted to her mother that there was a fire, and she thought everything was burning. In winter, for the girl who had no friends, her mother made friends out of snow. Together, they made snowmen and were happy spending time with each other. All these are precious memories for the girl, which she can now only see in her dreams. Her mother always told her daughter that Serena was her beloved girl. Although she would sometimes be sad and in pain without her, she should know she wasn't alone. At the same time, the heroine should never forget that there are people in this world who love and cherish her. Now the girl lay there, and tears flowed from her eyes at the memories of her mother. Edwin watched this carefully and wiped her tears. The girl thought, could anyone love her besides her own mother? After a while, the main heroine woke up, and the young man who had entered the carriage noticed it. He said she seemed to be awake. The girl immediately sat up and thought, who was this? Was it her father? Edwin said she was indeed awake but could sleep some more. The heroine thought that person was really there. Suddenly, he addressed the man and said the father had scared her. Edwin said that wasn't so, she was perplexed because of him. After all, just look, the child keeps staring at him. The girl looked at the person sitting opposite and thought he was an absolute mini copy of her father. That young man had the same scarlet eyes and pink hair. She didn't know what to do now, as she wasn't fully prepared for all this. How should she behave with someone she was seeing for the first time? Edwin told his precious daughter that Serena should get acquainted with this person. This young man is the crown prince of the empire and her eldest brother. Serena was shocked by what her father said and thought, was this person really the crown prince and her eldest brother? Then their eyes met, and the girl wondered what to do in this situation. After that, the heroine saw her eldest brother reaching his hand out to her, and it seemed to her he had a scary look. At the same time, that person said they had finally met. The main heroine was very frightened by this and thought he was very angry. She didn't know what to do in this situation. She just sat and begged not to be thrown out of the carriage. But suddenly, her brother said he was very pleased to meet her and asked if he understood correctly that her name was Serena. Then he introduced himself, saying his name was Theo Ursel Levashen and he would be her elder brother. He added that all family members simply called him Theo. The heroine looked carefully at her elder brother's kind gaze. At the same time, she thought, was the guy not showing that he disliked her because their father was nearby? The guy took her hand and said he would be happy if she addressed him that way too. The girl looked at him carefully again and realized he had such a radiant smile, as if the sun had descended from the sky. He was like a prince from a fairy tale. Also, the heroine looked into his eyes and thought she had the feeling he didn't like her. But now she thought, were her assumptions mistaken? The girl started hiccuping, and the men noticed. Theo said their precious little one had hiccups. Then he shouted to the subordinates to bring water quickly. The heroine thought that initially her elder brother was very friendly towards her and wondered if she was right. Her father and brother watched carefully as the girl drank. She thought she felt very burdened nonetheless. After some time, the carriage they were in was approaching its destination, and the palace was already visible from the windows. The girl continued to look at her brother and thought his hair shimmered like precious stones. Such a majestic person was her brother, and she was in shock. Then she thought that compared to him, she looked like some commoner. While she was thinking about all this, Theo moved closer to her and took one strand of her hair. Then he looked at it carefully and said what a charming color it was. Edwin agreed that it was true. After all, the shade of her hair was even more delicate than theirs. His son said he felt as if spring had bloomed on their little one's head. The girl thought at that moment she was ready to sink into the ground from embarrassment. It would be better if they threw her out of the carriage. Her father asked Serena if she knew she had 2 more brothers with a similar hair shade. They were just discussing that they should be arriving soon. One of them said they needed to hurry because they shouldn't keep the child waiting. And the father said those 2 were really looking forward to meeting her. They would see each other very soon. Then the girl thought, were they really waiting for her? The mere thought made her shudder with fear. Finally, they arrived in the carriage and walked along the path. The subordinates greeted His Imperial Majesty, His Highness the Crown Prince, and Her Highness the Princess. The girl looked ahead and thought, so this was the Imperial Palace. Ahead of all these subordinates stood 2 young men, and the girl thought, so these 2 were her elder brothers. The girl looked carefully at one of the young men and thought his eyes were like violets. It was as if she was seeing a fairy before her. And the other brother had such tousled, wavy hair, like a kitten. Finally, they approached each other, and Edwin told Serena that this was her second eldest brother, named Lorin. And next to him stood the third eldest brother, named Trail. Lorin addressed the girl and said he was pleased to meet her. Her name was as beautiful as she was. Then he said his name was Lorin Arpachi Levashin, but she could just call him Rain. Trail said his name was Trail, but she could simply call him Brother Trail. At that time, the girl thought everyone was truly happy about her arrival. So, she needed to be brave too. Then she gathered her courage and said her name was Serena. They were all shocked by such cuteness. The middle brother said, "Could such a wonderful little voice exist in the world?" And Serena was truly his younger sister. Right now, he felt like his brother would soar to the heavens from happiness. He also said her eyes, the color of young sprouts, were simply beautiful. Another brother said that was right, as she had not a single flaw. The girl thought all members of the imperial family were so beautiful and kind. They were like angels. The girl was embarrassed by her brother's words and then said her brother was even more beautiful. Lorin was very happy and said what was he to do, her words were so sweet. But then he asked the girl if she could hug her handsome brother once. But at that very moment, her father simply turned around and didn't let him hug her. Lorin asked what was wrong. Theo told him that their father was tired to death. The child was also tired, so they should go inside first and talk after resting. The girl left with her father and wondered why her brothers kept looking at her. They were whispering that even though she was their sister, she was so cute and expressive. The girl thought, did they have a good first impression of her or not? After some time, they all went inside the palace. Someone remarked that they needed to tell the manager of the Imperial Palace kitchen to prepare top-grade meat today. Lorin said that first, their Serena needed to gain weight, although she was very cute even now. The younger brother said that was right, as there was only enough meat on her for one bite. The heroine was shocked by these words and thought, were they planning to eat her? So that was why they were so polite to her at the first meeting. That's why she thought from now on she should behave as quietly as possible. Edwin sat at the table with the girl on his lap. She thought it was good, and she would sit still without moving or being distracted by anything. Suddenly she felt the chair looked very comfortable, so she thought if you settled into it, it felt like sitting on a cloud. All the brothers sat in front of the main heroine and watched her carefully. The girl thought, why were they all looking at her like that? Had she made some mistake? The younger brother asked Serena if she found the chair unusual. The girl said, unsure, that it looked quite comfortable. Her brother said if she wanted, she could sit in it. Her father immediately stood up and told the girl it was fine, she could go and sit there. Then they headed together to the chair near her brother's. Edwin told her to touch it and enjoy it. The girl immediately approached and started touching it, making a very cute expression. Her brothers and father watched carefully what the girl was doing. The heroine thought, what should she do? She had unconsciously shown too much interest. Theo approached the heroine and said she seemed to like the chair. Later, he would choose an even bigger and softer chair and send it to her palace. Trail shouted at his brother not to try to get ahead. Then he told his little sister he would get her the softest and biggest bed himself. The elder brother said he would give her a doll then. Trail said again that he would send her a playroom upholstered with mattresses so she could play around as much as she wanted. Then Theo said he would give her the entire palace. The younger brother asked him if he was seriously going to continue in the same vein. Suddenly, their conversation was interrupted by the girl. The young men looked at her carefully, and the little one said her mother told her to say thank you when she was given something. She was very embarrassed by all this and said that's why she wasn't asking for anything from them, but just wanted to thank them. Then she said she was very grateful to them for everything. Her elder brother came over and asked how she would like her brother to act. Then he leaned towards her and said he couldn't even imagine that, when he got a younger sister, he would feel this way. All the brothers and her father looked at the girl carefully and said she was just adorable. Edwin addressed the butler and asked why the imperial physician was so late. The man apologized and said it was presumptuous of him to say such a thing to him. Then he asked if he could wait a little longer. The man with a cold gaze told him to just try saying the word "wait" one more time. The girl thought the imperial physician was the same as a doctor, but why did they need a physician? She didn't understand. A short time passed, and the butler announced to His Majesty that the physician had arrived. The man said to let him in. The physician entered and greeted the son of the empire. The emperor told him to skip the greetings and check the princess's condition. He immediately obeyed and approached the girl. Then he sat near her and asked Her Highness the princess if she minded him asking a few questions. She shouldn't be afraid and should just answer honestly. The girl agreed. The physician asked what she usually ate. At that time, the emperor watched everything happening and worried. The heroine said she ate mashed potatoes and vegetables. Sometimes she ate red fruits that ripened in autumn, plus bread her mother bought and a little meat. The interlocutor said that was good. Then he asked how many meals she had a day. The girl said there were days when she ate only once. She also ate twice sometimes. The doctor examined her legs a bit and said there was nothing serious. Then he said she must have often suffered from frostbite and experienced pain in her toes. So, for the first time, the girl would need to take the medicine he prescribed and keep her feet and hands warm. He added that the girl was growing slower than her peers, but that was only because she consumed less food per day than the norm required, and there was no big problem here. Lorraine moved closer to the girl and asked if she was scared. The girl said she was a little. The physician said her diet was much more nutritious than His Majesty had assumed. Edwin told him to make a list of dishes, things, and medicines the princess needed. The physician immediately obeyed him. At that time, her father approached the girl and stroked her head. Then he asked if she was very surprised. He just wanted to check her well-being. Fortunately for everyone, she had no health problems. The heroine immediately thought he didn't have to worry about such trifles. But still, it was a relief for her too. She didn't want him to look at her so tenderly and say such warm words. Because every time the man acted like that, she felt her mother's absence even more acutely. After all this, a short time passed, and the main heroine was sitting in a room. Suddenly, someone addressed Her Highness and asked if she was experiencing any discomfort. The girl opened her eyes and thought, when had she managed to doze off? She told the maid standing behind her that everything was fine and she was very grateful to her. The woman told her she didn't need to speak formally to her. She could simply address her informally and say she was grateful. The girl said it was because her mother taught her to speak respectfully to adults. The maid said she must have a wonderful mother. Nevertheless, her status was lower than the princess's, so she shouldn't use formal address with her. The heroine thought, how should she respond in such cases? After all, she had never spoken with other people before. Then the maid said she was finished and showed the girl in the mirror. The girl was surprised and thought, was that really her? Then the princess was asked if she liked it. It turned out the maids already found her simply enchanting. The maid said when the princess grew up, she would become the most beautiful person in the empire. The girl asked, in the whole empire? Another maid told her yes, as she would undoubtedly become the most brilliant and beautiful lady in the empire. Another maid entered the room they were in and informed Her Highness that it was time for dinner. His Imperial Majesty and their Highnesses the princes were waiting for the girl. Finally, the maids told her to eat plenty of meat. The girl walked along the corridor and thought it was cozy and warm. At the same time, she wondered if she could calmly enjoy life in such a place without her mother. How could she be alone at all? On the day her mother left her, she felt like the world had ended. She was afraid she would be cold and scared in complete loneliness. But meeting her father at that moment, she unexpectedly broke free from the eternal frost. She broke free into an unfamiliar place, full of bright light and joy. This warm and cozy feeling was like an embrace from her mother, protecting her. It felt as if the girl had known all her relatives for a very long time. Her brothers were already gathered at the table and told the girl to come in quickly. The girl sat at the table and was shocked by the sophistication of the dishes and how beautifully everything was arranged. Her brothers told Serena to eat a lot. Lorraine looked at the girl and thought she was just so cute. He also told the girl that if she ate too much, she would get sick, so it was better to eat in moderation. The heroine agreed. Then the heroine looked carefully at the table and wondered which utensil she should use. Suddenly, her father placed a plate of food in front of her and told her to try each dish. The girl immediately took the cutlery and started trying little by little what was on her plate. When she tasted everything, she realized it was delicious. Her elder brother addressed her and told her to try this too. Then the other brothers joined in. The younger one told Serena that if she wanted to eat more, she should tell him immediately. After all, her third brother would put everything she needed on her plate. At the same time, he asked if the girl liked the food. Suddenly, the girl's face became strange, as if something hurt. Trail asked what was wrong, if something hurt. Edwin immediately approached her and said she had only touched the food a couple of times and she already felt unwell. That's why they needed to call the doctor and the kitchen manager immediately. The man couldn't understand who dared harm his daughter, but suddenly the heroine grabbed his hand and said not to do that. Because she made that face only because she wanted to thank them, so she said she was very grateful for everything. Her father breathed a sigh of relief and said Serena thanked for every little thing very often. After that, he knelt on one knee before the girl and said then he should also thank and apologize. The girl looked at him carefully, and he said she had to face so many difficulties alone. She did so, waiting for her negligent father to arrive. That's why the man thanked Serena for surviving. And he also apologized for not being able to protect her mom. He asked for forgiveness for her father arriving too late. At that time, the girl thought she knew that feeling of helplessness when you could do nothing. Nevertheless, her dad didn't give up and kept searching for them. The moment he uttered the words of apology, his gaze was filled with sadness and loneliness. Now the main heroine realized she wasn't the only one who grieved deeply for her mother's death. Because of all this, she became very sad, and tears involuntarily started falling from her eyes. Her brothers saw their younger sister start crying and immediately got scared because of it. So they, along with their father, approached the girl to hug her. At the same time, they were sad with her and wanted to comfort her somehow. The girl thought at that moment that she missed her mother very much. After some time, the main heroine was in her bed, and her father sat beside her. At the same time, he thought he couldn't utter a word at the sight of his sobbing daughter, all because he truly knew the reason for her tears. At that time, the eldest son entered the room and asked his father if he was okay. Edwin said he was fine. At least he managed to find Serena. Then the eldest son asked where that woman had lived. At the same time, he told his father he was no longer the little child he had been back then. That's why he also had the right to know the whole truth. Her father looked at him with sadness and realized he had no choice but to tell. As a result, he said the woman lived in a wretched hut. It also turned out the main heroine's mother left a letter. And now, the curse that hung over Serena was completely dispelled. Then the man said it turned out they only had to do one thing now. His son said at that time he knew they must protect Serena so nothing like this would ever happen again. After all, Serena was his beloved younger sister. This child, in whose eyes the greenery of a forest illuminated by sunlight was captured. But it turned out the child, who should have received universal love, seemed unaccustomed to communicating with people. What they all considered perfectly natural for a girl was quite the opposite for her. A child who knew nothing was forced to cope with so many hardships alone. Then Theo asked his father if he was going to tell Serena all this. The man said he wanted to, but definitely not now. After that, Theo said when she was stronger, both physically and mentally, he would bring it up again. Now he kissed the girl and told Serena she wasn't alone anymore. Then the young man stood up and prepared to leave. Finally, he only told his father that for now, he would grind to dust anything that could harm this child. Her father listened carefully and remained alone with the girl. At that very time, the girl was asleep and had a dream. Her mother called the girl and asked her to wake up and look at her. The heroine remembered this was a memory from her past life when she was first born as her mother's daughter. In the dream, the girl asked her mother if she was wounded. After all, she couldn't be, because if she used magic in such a state, she could die. Then, with the help of her mother's power, they moved somewhere, and there was another person there. The girl realized there was someone else besides them. It was a man approaching them, and the girl wondered who he was, but he looked quite familiar to her. After some time, the main heroine woke up in her bed. She thought she had such a dream not only because she missed her mother. It was also unclear who that man was. It seemed she had seen him somewhere before. His face reflected such pain, as if he were the one wounded. Then the heroine decided she needed to wash up first and then think about this topic again. The very moment the girl tried to open the door to her room, Lorraine burst in. He shouted "Good morning" to his little sister. At the same time, he asked if the girl had slept well, but suddenly saw she was on the floor. As a result, he realized he had hit Serena and got very scared. Then he ran over to her and asked if she was okay. Suddenly, subordinates approached and asked His Highness what the noise was in the princess's room, and the young man said to call the imperial physician immediately. After that, her elder brother picked the girl up and apologized to Serena. At the same time, he said her elder brother was a real idiot and asked for forgiveness. He also told the girl not to worry, as she just had a slight nosebleed. The girl thought her brother looked 100 times worse than she felt at that moment. Her brother kept saying everything would be fine and she would be okay. The imperial physician would come soon and she should wait a little. But suddenly, her father burst into the room and slammed the door. Then he asked in a very angry voice what had happened. Lorraine told his father he had swung the door open too hard and hit Serena with it. Her father asked if his son had dared to open the door carelessly. He apologized to his father and said he was truly guilty. Suddenly, the girl addressed them and asked them to listen. It turned out her brother wasn't to blame for what happened. After all, it turned out she was also lost in thought and didn't notice. In general, she didn't want Lorraine to be scolded for this. Her brother immediately asked the girl if she was worried about him. The heroine said that was indeed true. At the same time, she thought she had lost count of how many times the imperial physician they called repeated that she was fine. After the examination, her father asked the physician if she had any other injuries besides the nosebleed. Lorraine said the girl's eyes looked somewhat strange. The physician said everything was fine. Her eyes were just a bit swollen since she had just woken up. And so, when all the questions finally ended, the girl could have breakfast with her family. After all, it was okay if they kept what happened a secret from the other brothers. Her elder brother asked why they were late for breakfast, and he wondered if they wanted to say Serena had managed to get hurt early in the morning. The main heroine started worrying at that time and got hiccups again. Theo said she really had hiccups again and handed her water to drink. Lorraine told Theo it happened because he opened the door without knowing Serena was behind it. Her elder brother said he expected something like that from Trail, but not from him. So, he had managed to make every possible mistake. The younger brother asked, "What about me right away?" Theo said the imperial palace doors were under repair. Nevertheless, their father ordered him to demolish all the imperial palace doors so nothing like this would happen again. The main heroine's hair stood on end from such information, as she didn't understand how they could demolish all the doors. Thea told the girl to eat her vegetables. At that time, Edwin joined the conversation and said medium-sized doors would be installed, and henceforth it wouldn't be difficult for the girl to open them. The girl asked if they were doing all this because of her, but her father said that wasn't so, he just didn't like the design. The heroine thought that was a lie. Still, her father paid attention even to such small details for her sake. Her brothers told the girl at that time to chew her food thoroughly because they had even cut her meat for her. The girl remembered then that she had heard illegitimate children weren't loved, but would it be normal for her to receive so much love? It turned out she should give them something in return too. Suddenly, the younger brother asked the heroine what her favorite color was. The girl asked what he meant. At that moment, all the brothers tensed up and thought they needed to furnish Serena's room and the entire palace in that color, up to flowers of a similar shade in the garden. A moment later, the girl said she liked the color pink. The young men immediately understood what they needed to do and took note of this information. After that, all the brothers, as one, said they liked that color too. It turned out the girl was simply a miracle to them. Some time passed, and the brothers and the main heroine were leaving after the meal. Lorraine told the girl that many beautiful flowers grew behind the imperial palace and asked if she wanted to see them. The girl said she really did. The younger brother also shouted that he wanted to go with them. Her father said they wouldn't see each other until dinner then. Her elder brother also told the girl that next time she must definitely go for a walk with him too. Then he grabbed his younger brother and told him to talk less and follow him. Trail apologized to his sister and said his training was about to start. As soon as he finished, he would rush right back and asked her to wait. Lorraine told him to get out of his sight already. The girl said she would wait for him. Then the middle brother offered his hand and asked if they should go then. After all, he would accompany her to the garden. The girl looked carefully at the young man and thought Lorraine really was the spitting image of a prince from a fairy tale. After that, they went outside together, and there was a beautiful garden blooming with various flowers. The heroine looked at this beauty and was simply delighted by what she saw. Then she asked her brother if it was already spring here. He, in turn, asked the heroine if she knew about such a thing as magic. The girl immediately said she knew all about it. Then the guy added that the reason it was so warm here was magic. After that, he picked her up and said a magical spell was cast on the garden to maintain the air's warmth, so all these flowers could please the eye with their beautiful blooming. The heroine asked if that meant this spring was created by magic. Her interlocutor smiled and said one could say so. Then he added that Serena was very similar to her own mother. The girl first looked carefully at her brother, then leaned against him, hiding her face. The young man got scared and then asked if she was feeling nauseous or if something hurt. He asked if she was experiencing any discomfort and to just tell him. She addressed the young man and asked why her brother was so caring towards her. He said it was because she was his younger sister. The girl said, Julia, noting that on the other hand, she was still an illegitimate child. Lorraine didn't expect to hear that and asked Serena where such thoughts had come from in her head. Then he asked if she had been thinking about this all alone all this time. Although he didn't know from whom she heard these words, it wasn't like that at all. The heroine immediately thought, how was it not like that at all? Her brother immediately said she wasn't an illegitimate child. The girl asked what he meant. After that, her elder brother said the girl's mother was the empress, so the purest blood of the imperial family flowed in her veins. So, she was the biological sister of Theo and Trail. And it turned out it was the opposite, only he was the illegitimate offspring. The girl couldn't believe his words and thought, was Lorraine the illegitimate child, not her? So, not knowing this, she had been talking to him about it. The heroine asked him to tell her more, as she absolutely knew nothing about what had happened here. But her brother replied he could only tell her that much. The girl wanted to say something else, but the young man apologized to her. He also said he was very sorry, but her father himself would tell her everything soon. To his great shame, he simply had no right to reveal anything. How many difficulties had she faced because of him? And now the main heroine thought her mother really was the empress. So, it turned out she was a princess, not an illegitimate child as she had thought before. At that time, the girl looked at her elder brother and saw he was sad. She thought she still wanted to ask a few more questions, but Lorraine looked too sad. So she said she would wait, so he didn't need to apologize. At that very moment, Serena's name rang out across the area. The girl and her brother turned and saw Trail approaching. He said her little bear brother had come, and her dear third brother was here. Then the young man asked if he had come quickly. The girl said he really had. Then he asked if she would hug him at least once for trying so hard to finish his training quickly. The girl looked quite embarrassed at that moment, and the young man noticed. Then he asked if he smelled of sweat because he was in such a hurry he forgot to wash, so he asked her to forgive him for that. But the main heroine immediately reached out her arms and said there was no smell of sweat at all. That's why she wanted to hug him. The young man was surprised at first, then held out his arms and waited for it. A moment later, the girl hugged him tightly and sat in his arms. At the same time, she thought Trail smelled of fresh wind. Then her brother asked her elder brother if Serena was really hugging him. He said that was indeed true. Trail asked if this was a dream. Lorraine smiled and said, "Of course not." It turned out his fist training had finally borne fruit. The girl thought he should stop saying such things, as she was about to burn up from embarrassment. Suddenly, her brother apologized to Serena and said she was so cute he couldn't help himself and wouldn't do anything else. The heroine looked at her middle brother and asked what that was. He said if she meant this thing, it was a video sphere. By capturing a moment on it, a person could watch it again anytime. Her sister asked if this was magic too. Her brother said it indeed was. The heroine was shocked and asked if that meant he was a sorcerer like her mother. Lorraine smiled proudly and said one could say so. Trail was angry about this and thought that at this rate, his place as the cool brother would be taken by his elder brother. The girl was shocked and said it turned out Lorraine was a mage too, and that was amazing. Then the girl began examining the spheres with fascination. Trail said the girl should know that even though he wasn't a sorcerer, he was a very strong knight. On top of that, he was a knight order commander. But the girl didn't answer him, as she was engrossed. The young man became sad and asked her to at least look at him. After some time of playing, she told her brother he was also truly amazing. Trail was very impressed by what his younger sister said. Then, he was very embarrassed and happy at the same time. So, that very day, a small commotion arose during dinner. When they all gathered for dinner, her father wished his daughter a pleasant appetite, and she thanked him. Suddenly, the younger brother addressed the elder one and asked if he knew one important thing. At that time, the elder was in the process of cutting meat for Serena. So he told him to save his useless chatter for later because he was cutting the meat into pieces. At that time, Trail stood up and said today Serena had called him brother. The elder brother was shocked at that time, and the main heroine's father was too. Literally, both of them immediately asked what he had just said, and they looked quite unfriendly. Then they became very dejected, and the main heroine noticed this. So she thought, what was happening? Why had such a strange atmosphere arisen? Was she simply not allowed to use the word brother? Theo addressed the girl and said he would like her to call him brother too, not just elder brother. He added no, even better, he was simply asking her to call him brother. The heroine was shocked, thinking he was about to scold her. Then her father addressed her and said it was probably difficult for her to pronounce the word father. So he thought the word daddy would sound softer. That's why he was asking her to call him only daddy. The main heroine was shocked by their requests, then asked both if she could really address them that way. Suddenly, their conversation was interrupted by Lorraine, who said he had almost forgotten about the video sphere. After all, it turned out Serena was captured on the sphere. The girl thought that was the moment when she was in the garden with her brothers. Trail at that time addressed his brother and asked him to give him the video sphere. The young man asked why he should give it to him. The younger brother said he was also captured on it and he had a right to it. Then Lorraine said, could he prove that he was the one captured on the video sphere? Trail said he could see his own curly pink hair. His brother asked, but wasn't pink the hair color of more than just him in the imperial palace? The girl thought she had a right to it too. Suddenly the father addressed his middle son, and he asked what he wanted. And Edwin said he thought they needed to have a talk. At the same time, he said if there was something he wanted, he should say it. He also told him he was ready to fulfill any request he had made to him last time. The middle brother agreed with his father and elder brother's proposals. Edwin shook his own son's hand and said they would meet in the study after dinner. When the situation was resolved, everyone was in excellent spirits, except for Trail. After some time, they left the room together and walked along the corridor. Thea told his middle brother that he had been informed about his conversation with Serena in the garden. The young man immediately thought it was probably Trail's doing. Her father immediately told his son never to say he had no rights again. Her elder brother added that her father was right, as he was still his younger brother. So he should know that if anything like that happened again, he would get a scolding from him. Then Lorraine said that despite everything said, he couldn't just give them the video with Serena. At that moment, the young man remembered a situation from childhood when Lorraine first called Theo his brother. The main heroine sat after dinner drinking tea. She was asked if she liked the dishes served for dinner today. The girl said yes, as it was very tasty. The girl sat and thought about the words relayed by the maids who had been in the study after dinner. The young men discussed something there, and the father said he was counting on his middle son from now on. He said then he expected worthy payment for his efforts. The elder son said not to worry, as it was a lifetime contract. Then Theo addressed the maids standing near them. He asked, since they had become Serena's maids, had they noticed the child experiencing any discomfort. Also, Lorraine asked if she perhaps wanted something. Trail said he thought the girl felt awkward asking them personally, so they should answer his questions. At that time, the atmosphere was so heavy it was hard to breathe. Now the maids were saying all this and remarked that no matter what, they loved her. The girl was shocked at that, but the maids said it was the pure truth. After that, one of them said it was time to go to bed and asked if they should go to His Majesty. The girl said yes. At the same time, she thought that if we were talking about changes in her daily life, from today she would sleep with her father. So, after some time, the girl sat on his lap. Her father asked if Serena was scared to sleep alone. It turned out he was worried she couldn't fall asleep peacefully in such a huge room, so he didn't want to leave her alone and suggested sleeping together. The girl thought, could she refuse a person who was begging so desperately for something? She simply couldn't. At that very moment, all her brothers were shocked and their expressions changed dramatically. The man asked if she was very tired today. The girl said it wasn't like that. Then her father said it seemed to him her eyes were closing from fatigue. The heroine was embarrassed at that time and said that wasn't the issue at all. She thought he was wearing such thin clothing that he could easily catch a cold. Her father said it was already late, so it was time for little children to go to sleep. As a result, the girl agreed. After that, her father and daughter went to bed and settled down to sleep. Finally, the man only wished Serena good night, and after a while, they both fell asleep. And so, the girl dreamed of her mother talking with some man who was familiar to her. She said a curse couldn't be transferred like a disease. The man told her he knew that, and she should calm down. Then the woman said how could she calm down when everyone wanted to kill their child? The man hugged her and told the empress he would solve this problem. After all, he wouldn't let their little one die. Still, he would find a way to dispel the curse, so he asked her not to cry. The woman cried all this time and said Edwin's name. The heroine now thought, what was her curse? Didn't she die from an illness? Then the heroine's mother cried out, what bad had this child done? It would be better if they cursed her instead of her daughter. The man kissed his beloved and called her Empress Ariel and his love. He asked the girl to trust him, as he would surely protect her and the children. But suddenly the dream broke off, and the heroine asked to see a little more. At that very moment, the girl woke up in her room and saw it was morning. At the same time, she thought, what was that? The events differed from those she remembered. She wondered what her mom and dad were talking about in her dream. And suddenly, her father addressed the girl and said she had woken up very early. He also asked if she could sleep a bit more. The girl was frightened at that time, but said she had slept enough. Her father said that was strange, as he had heard that long sleep was good for growth. So he wondered if the girl didn't like sleeping long. The heroine thought that just one glance at her father made all sleep vanish. The girl thought he was more dazzling than even the morning sun. At the same time, she wished her dad would put on clothes first. Edwin leaned towards her and said it seemed girls were different from boys. After some time, they finally got dressed and left the room. Her elder son was already standing there and asked his father if they had finally come. Her father said that was so, and they should go. Then they headed somewhere together. He asked the girl if she felt uncomfortable due to the change of environment. The heroine said she had slept well with her dad. Then she asked how her brother had slept. Her elder brother was touched at that time and said he had slept well too. Her father addressed the girl and asked her to call him Daddy one more time. After some time, they met more people on their way. The middle son said to his father, elder brother, and Serena that he was glad to see them. And the younger son wished Serena a good morning. The girl greeted her brothers with a smile on her face. After some time, the main heroine's father sat down, and the girl looked at him carefully. Then Edwin said he would like to hold her in his arms all day, but he wondered if it was inconvenient for her. Every second spent with her was precious to him, so he didn't want to move a millimeter away. The girl thought when her dad looked at her with such an expression, she absolutely didn't know how to react. Then she told her father it was quite comfortable for her. Edwin thanked her for that, and then added it was time to start eating. After that, her father asked the girl if she liked this dish. Her elder brother sat with a strange face at that time and was clearly in a bad mood. The middle son also sat there, not showing it, but was also in a bad mood. Her father told the girl to try the meat, as it was so tender it literally melted in her mouth. The girl told her father to try it too. Edwin said the girl had called him daddy, and the girl did so. The heroine looked at her brothers and thought why they were behaving like that. Did they not have an appetite? So that was how the coziest, and at the same time uncomfortable breakfast ended. Their father either didn't notice the brothers' glances or simply ignored them. The girl thought that was perhaps how an emperor should act. Now she was outside, strolling among the flowers. Suddenly the girl felt someone picking her up and looked there. Then she said it was Brother Loring. The young man picked her up and asked if she had come out for a walk and if he was disturbing her. The girl said, "Of course not," and then asked to walk together. After that, the young man told Serena to listen to him. The girl asked what he wanted to say. Loring asked if it was really comfortable for her to sit on their father's lap. The girl asked what he was talking about. The young man said that wasn't what he meant. He wanted to ask if it was comfortable for her in that position. At that very moment, the girl imagined her brother on their father's lap. Then she thought perhaps Loring also wanted to sit on their dad's lap, so she told him it was indeed comfortable. Her brother immediately smiled and said then perhaps it would be even more comfortable on his lap. After all, his legs were softer than their father's. He wondered if during the next meal, the girl would like to sit on her brother's lap. Then he asked what Serena thought about that. At that time, the girl only smiled and didn't answer. At the same time, she thought it seemed all members of the imperial family knew how to use such an expression. That very day at dinner, she had to endure those frightening glances. For her, it was literally like déjà vu. After some time, the main heroine was asleep and again had strange dreams. In the dream, she was in great pain and writhed, saying she was scared. There she cried and thought it was tormenting, so she called for her mom and dad. After the dream ended, the main heroine immediately woke up and came to her senses. At the same time, she sat in horror, remembering what had happened there. It turned out that with each time, her dreams about her past life were becoming clearer. She had no idea her mom and dad had to go through such hardship because of her. In these memories of hers, she had withered just like her mother. The girl also remembered her mother's words from the dream, who said a curse couldn't be transferred like a disease. But what if she had infected her mother with that curse? It turned out the words said by her middle brother Loring didn't give her peace. Back then, he said that to his great shame, he simply had no right to tell the girl. The heroine lay and thought if she fell asleep again, could she see something more from her past? She was also afraid she might have another scary dream. Suddenly, the girl raised her eyes and saw her father wasn't asleep. At that time, he asked if the girl couldn't fall asleep. Her daughter addressed him and called him father, but he interrupted again and said she should call him daddy. She thought he was really a mischief maker. Then she addressed him and said she had a question. Edwin said the girl could ask him anything. After a moment, the heroine asked what kind of person her mother was in the emperor's eyes. Her father's face immediately became sadder, and he said he didn't even know what words were best to describe her. A moment later, he said she was literally his happiness. After that, he said her mother was strong, beautiful, and always simply dazzling. Also, besides all that, she was a powerful archmage. The main heroine asked if her mother was really an archmage. The man said that was indeed true. There was no more outstanding mage in the empire than her mother. As a result, it turned out she was simply a great person. The girl thought her mother really was an amazing person. Then the girl asked her interlocutor to tell her a bit more about her mother. She added she just didn't remember well the time she spent with her mother in her past life. Suddenly, her father turned pale and asked what she had just said. The girl thought she had blurted out too much and was shocked. At the same time, the man asked his daughter again what she had just told him. The girl tried to say she didn't mean anything by it. At the same time, she thought she had spilled the beans, as it was her huge secret. Edwin said if Serena was talking about her past life, what exactly did she remember from it? The heroine thought what to do in this situation, as it seemed her father was very angry. Precisely because she didn't know what to do, she started crying heavily at that moment. Her father noticed this and tried to comfort her. He apologized to the little one and said Daddy had probably scared her a lot. The girl thought she was a child who remembered her past life, so now her father would hate her, as she was sure he was angry. After some time, the man told his daughter to stop crying and just look at him. The girl asked if she told him everything, would he be angry with her? Her interlocutor said he promised he wouldn't. At the end of her story, the girl apologized for hiding all this information from the man. Edwin put his hand on the girl and asked if she really remembered all that. He couldn't even imagine she could remember that time. Then the man said this wasn't a past life now. The girl asked what her father meant. He told Serena she wasn't born a second time. It turned out her mother used magic to return her to the time before she was cursed. The main heroine asked then, did that mean she really wasn't born a second time? The man said that was so, as she was there and Ariel's first daughter. After that, the man said he couldn't even imagine how scary it was for her to keep these memories secret from everyone. It turned out he should have sensed what was in her heart earlier. That's why he was now asking for her forgiveness for hiding this fact from her. Edwin said they needed to tell her brothers about this then. The girl asked why her brothers. Her father said her mother always said there should be no secrets within the family. Then he remembered telling his wife if she dared to hide anything, she would die by his hand. Then the girl replied to him, who even smiled so charmingly when scolding someone, and so Edwin shouted to immediately summon the princes to his room. A few minutes hadn't passed before the princes burst into the man's room. The younger one asked his father what had happened now. The middle one asked Serena if she was okay. At that time, the elder one addressed his father and said he had mentioned wanting to tell something important about Serena's memories. Immediately, the man with a cold gaze told Trail to speak more quietly. The young man said he wasn't expressing dissatisfaction with his father. He was just very surprised and apologized to Serena. After that, they discussed the story the girl had told her father. Theo said, after listening to them, it seemed he could understand why Serena's memory was so mixed up. Her father said it must be that the 5-year-old Serena had erased part of her memories when time reversed. Her interlocutor said he understood everything then. Then the middle son said the amount of memory indeed depended on age. The younger one asked what he meant now. Trail told Serena not to worry. After all, he also had no memories of what happened in his life when he was 5. Her elder brother said that was because he was a dummy. The heroine heard this and just laughed. The emperor said at that time that now that they had clarified this nuance, he should tell Serena the whole story. Still, he wasn't sure he would finish by dawn and asked if the girl wanted and could listen to him. The heroine said she wanted to, and her brothers said they were ready too. Then the man said, first of all, he should tell the girl about Lorraine. At the same time, he addressed his middle son and said it would probably be hard for him to listen to all this. At that time, he was indeed sad, so he didn't say anything. The girl and her brothers looked at him, felt sad, and wanted to support him. Suddenly, the middle brother felt someone take his hand. After that, he raised his eyes and saw his elder and younger brothers sitting there. Their looks showed they really wanted to support their brother. So Lorraine smiled and said he was completely fine, all because his family was next to him. Her father immediately thanked him for that. And so, a moment later, her father began his long story. He said the story went back to the time when he first met that girl, long before the main heroine's birth, and that girl's name was Ariel. Despite her commoner origins, she was a sorceress with strong magical abilities. As a result, she became a mage of the imperial court, then continued to improve and earned the title of archmage. She was a very beautiful woman with a kind heart who always cared about people's safety. She gave the man invaluable support in his work to unite the empire. As a result of all this, he fell in love with her. So, he started courting her endlessly. And so he addressed Ariel and said he loved her, so he asked her to become his wife. Then she was shocked and asked if he had gone mad. After all, how could he marry a subordinate and a commoner? At that time, her elder brother said, knowing their mother's character, he thought he had a really hard time. The man said it was so, as he ran after her for a whole 2 years. Still, he didn't give up and kept courting her, but each time he got only a refusal. The moment he approached her, the girl constantly ran away, and he didn't even have time to address her. It wasn't that he didn't understand her feelings, but he was simply desperate. In all his life, he had met for the first time a person he wanted to possess entirely. One evening, he lay in his room and kept calling Ariel's name. Suddenly, he heard someone address him and ask why he was calling her. The man immediately raised his head and saw Ariel before him. She told him what kind of emperor was he who couldn't even take care of his own body, as he would soon fall ill completely. Her interlocutor said his appearance must have disappointed her. The girl said she was an eccentric with a terrible temper and could be sharp in her expressions. The man said her character was soft and gentle. Ariel asked if his friend had told him she had a bitchy character. Edwin said he would immediately summon Archduke Ian and let him know what kind of person she was. Then the girl laughed and asked why he joked with such a serious expression. The man said he didn't even know what to say to that. Then he took a strand of the girl's hair and said he knew the reason lay in his greed. But still, he simply couldn't refuse her. So, all this time he desired only her. The girl put her hand on his hand and said this was really serious. Then she reached out to kiss him and said he should only try to say later that he regretted it, and then he would be in trouble. Edwin said if she scolded him at least once, he wouldn't mind at all. After a short time, it was announced that Ariel would become the next empress, and there were no objections. The empire's residents celebrated their wedding and raised toasts to their union. Precisely in those happy and beautiful days, their first son, Theo, was born. And exactly a year later, news awaited them that stunned their imagination. So it turned out from that very news, they learned about Lorraine's existence. One day, someone knocked on the emperor's door, and he said he was busy now, so they should come back later. But his beloved looked in and asked if he was busy. The man immediately said he wasn't, as he was just bored because he had too much free time. Then he asked what was wrong with Ariel. He added if she had called him, he would have rushed to her immediately. The girl said she just wanted to see him and chat a bit. Then she said she was actually worried about what she had heard during tea time. Then Edwin asked what she meant. The girl said they were saying Marquis Purdon had taken an illegitimate child into his house to solve the heir problem. He asked if his elder brother had really done that. The emperor knew Marquis Purdon was his only blood relative in this world. It turned out he hadn't inherited the ruling dynasty's pink hair. His personal qualities lagged in all respects, so he couldn't ascend the throne. Also, the Marquis was a dangerous man with boundless ambition. He had heard news that he was trying in every way to solve the succession problem, but in 5 years of marriage, Purdon and his wife hadn't managed to have a child. The man told his spouse it didn't matter if he chose an illegitimate child as his successor. But still, it was a pity for the child, considering the wounds he would receive due to the noble's negative reaction. Suddenly, Ariel said that wasn't the only problem, because it was said that child also had pink hair. That a child with pink hair was born in the Marquis's family became a hot topic of discussion in high society. An illegitimate child not belonging to the imperial family had pink hair. That alone made him valuable material for those plotting a rebellion. Edwin immediately said he should meet with his elder brother. His spouse told him that boy was still a newborn, so she hoped he would be all right. The man told her not to worry about it. After that conversation, a short time passed, and the emperor sat in his study. The butler addressed His Majesty and said Marquis Purdon had arrived. The emperor said to let him in. And so his elder brother arrived and greeted him. He told His Highness he hoped he had been in good health all this time, but he immediately said it was time to end the greetings and asked him to sit down. His brother sat on the sofa and asked for what reason he had summoned such an insignificant person as himself. The emperor said he thought he knew the reason better than him. His interlocutor understood what he was talking about and said it was probably about Lorraine. Edwin asked with surprise who Lorraine was. His brother said this boy was his child, who had recently been brought to Purdon Castle. The emperor said that was quite amusing. After all, it turned out he, who despised illegitimate children, had enrolled one as his heir. Purdon told His Majesty he was long past his youth, and retiring was easier when a person had a successor. His brother said that meant he decided to quickly take an illegitimate child under his wing to preserve his position. His interlocutor said his brother expressed himself too harshly. After all, he had hoped to receive his blessing since he had a son who would become his successor. The emperor said he, of course, congratulated him on the birth of his nephew Lorraine. However, even if he wished happiness for this child, it seemed unlikely his wish would ever come true. He was also worried that the label illegitimate hung over his nephew. So, his brother, being the child's father, should set an example so no one could disturb Lorraine's peace of mind. At that moment, the brothers looked at each other with cold glances. The elder brother said he was grateful for His Highness's concern. After that difficult conversation, the Marquis headed for the exit. As he walked, he heard the emperor giving instructions to his subordinate. Edwin told the subordinate to investigate the Marquis's correspondence and find out about Lorraine's biological mother. He also needed to know the current state of the Marquis's residence. He should also find out what movements the Marquis had made lately and with whom he maintained close contact. The subordinate immediately told His Majesty he would do everything. Edwin said he gave him 2 weeks for this work. After some time, the emperor sat in his study with the report he had asked his subordinate for. From it, he learned that Lorraine's biological mother was a maid in the Marquis's residence. And one day, after spending a night with the Marquis, she became pregnant. And it was assumed she died from severe bleeding after giving birth to her child. Then the man thought, hadn't the Marquis been corresponding frequently with other nobles lately? This interested him, and he thought, was he planning to organize treason using Lorraine? For now, these were just his assumptions, and he didn't have enough evidence. He understood that for now, he should simply continue observing. After some time, the emperor was in an embrace with his spouse, Ariel. She asked if that meant Lorraine remained living in the Marquis's residence. Her spouse said there was simply no other choice. He lacked a worthy excuse to take that child under his protection now. The girl immediately asked if such an opportunity arose, how did he plan to protect him? The man sweetly hugged his spouse and said that's why he wanted to ask her a favor. His interlocutor said that was suspicious, as he had suddenly started acting cute. Then she asked what request he had for her. He said if an opportunity to take Lorraine arose, he really wanted him to enter the imperial palace as his son. Ariel asked if that meant he wanted to make him a member of the imperial family. Her interlocutor said yes, but her opinion was still important to him. She was very happy at that moment and said she was all for it, as she really liked his idea. The man was surprised by his spouse's reaction and said he was glad she didn't mind. Then he said he still felt like Lorraine had pushed him into the background. Ariel said what a funny guy he was the one who started talking about it first. Then she asked why he was acting like a little child. The emperor said what could he do if jealousy was burning him up inside. The girl asked if he was begging for her attention more than Theo. Edwin added that nevertheless, she had to cope with both his demand for attention and his love. The girl said then he should call her big sister. The man said then he would do so. After all these events, 5 years flew by. While preparing for the banquet for Theo's 7th birthday, new news reached the emperor's ears. The report said the Marquise was pregnant and possibly carrying a son. So the 6-year-old son, Lorraine, who was already deprived of love all this time, was subjected to abuse. Hearing this story, the empress became angry and said that Marquis was simply a scoundrel and she would finish him off. Edwin tried to calm her down, saying what if the child heard? Still, he knew she would react like that, so he had hidden this fact from her until today. The girl wanted to object to him, but he interrupted her. Kissing her hand, he said, to put it simply, the time had come. Then he asked the girl to let him take care of Lorraine. He also noted that now she should think of herself first, as she shouldn't be nervous. After some time, the banquet for Theo's 7th birthday began. Everyone congratulated His Highness the first prince on his birthday. After some time, his father asked his son if he liked the gifts. He was delighted with them and said he liked everything very much. At that time, Ariel was thinking that because of her sweet son, she had completely forgotten something important. Now, she wondered where that child was and looked for him with her eyes. Looking over the whole crowd, the girl understood he definitely should be here. And suddenly, among the people, she noticed a boy who was very small and stood out with his pink hair. Tightly squeezing her spouse's hand, the Empress said Lorraine was there. So, he was only a year younger than Theo but was so small. She thought the Marquis was a parent just like her, and how could one treat their child like that? At that moment, the Emperor told his spouse Ariel to stay here, and he headed into the crowd. Then he said he wanted to thank everyone who came to celebrate the prince's birthday. So, this banquet was open not only for the prince, but for all the brilliant guests, so he hoped they would have a good time. And so the Emperor approached his elder brother, the Marquis. He greeted the Emperor. Edwin said he congratulated him as he had heard his wife was pregnant. His interlocutor just laughed and asked His Majesty if he knew about it too. So, rumors had already reached the imperial palace. Edwin said rumors were like the wind after all. Purdon said he was simply grateful for the attention shown to him. The Emperor said in the current situation, only one question worried him. How did he plan to solve the heir issue? So, he knew he had put a lot of effort into raising Lorraine as his successor. But wouldn't it be better if the legitimate son became the heir? And so, by a happy coincidence, the Marquis had already marked the child in his wife's womb as his future successor. The Marquis asked what he was getting at. The Emperor immediately said he intended to make Lorraine part of the imperial family. Purdon was very surprised and asked His Majesty what he had just said. Edwin said he would repeat it. He still intended to make Lorraine part of the imperial family. His elder brother said Lorraine was still his son. And so, he didn't understand how the Emperor, being a parent, dared to ask him to give up his only son. At another time, he thought the Marquis must have lost his mind if he dared to spout such nonsense after doing such a thing to his own child. Then he told his interlocutor he understood his feelings, but he should just look at Lorraine now and think everything over carefully. After that, he came very close to his interlocutor and told him coldly, wasn't the child so thin and unhappy because it was hard for the Marquis to be responsible for him? Purdon said it was simply because this child was very picky from birth and refused to eat much. The Emperor said in his opinion, he didn't like how they cooked in Marquis Purdon's residence. So, the imperial palace had an unrivaled head chef, and the table was laden with diverse dishes. The Marquis asked His Majesty if he wasn't bored being alone in such a place. His tone was quite angry. At that very time, Theo approached Lorraine, greeted him and introduced himself, saying his name was Theo Ursel Levashen. Lorraine was shy and couldn't speak, but Theo said he knew his name. Then they shook hands, and the young man said he was pleased to meet him. Lorraine was frightened but said he was pleased too. The Marquis and the Emperor watched this conversation between the two young men. One asked, watching the two young men together, didn't they please the eye? He said he couldn't sleep properly lately because the child kept appearing before his eyes. It turned out the Empress had also given her permission for Lorraine to be accepted under the imperial family's patronage. The Marquis was very angry and said he needed time to think. Suddenly, the Emperor addressed him again in a cold voice. He said, did he give the impression of an extremely patient person? He also told the Marquis he wasn't asking for his opinion at all. After all, he hadn't said he wanted to make him part of the imperial family. He had informed him he was going to make him part of the imperial family. He also told the Marquis to watch his behavior better. And he shouldn't make him think about what he should do at the next formal dinner. The elder brother was very angry with Edwin at that time. The Emperor addressed the crowd and said that besides today being his son Theo's birthday, he had another joyful piece of news to share with everyone. It turned out he was told the Marquis Purdon was pregnant, and soon a legitimate child of his elder brother would be born. Everyone immediately started congratulating the Marquis and Marquise. He also said he had a new family member. His nephew, who was dearly loved by the Marquis, would become part of the imperial family. And from now on, he granted him the name Lorraine Arpachi Levashen. Hearing this, the Marquis was shocked and thought, had he even decided on the name? The emperor thanked the marquis for making such a difficult decision. It turned out he would make every effort to raise him with love and care, in no way inferior to his tender feelings for him. Purdon immediately bowed to him, but thought he would definitely pay him back for such an insult. But at that very moment, he said he was very grateful to His Majesty for such mercy towards his younger brother. At that time, Ariel was passing near them, and everyone greeted the moon of the empire. Theo noticed his mother and was happy, but Lorraine was frightened. The girl looked at this and thought the fox had just glanced at him briefly, and he had already shrunk in fear. If a child assessed a simple glance as danger, she was afraid to imagine what he had been through. The girl immediately approached the new family member and said she was happy to see the child with them. She also hugged him tightly and said they were one family now. The young man was happy about this turn of events and even cried. Now the emperor continued telling all this to his daughter and sons. He said at that time, Lorraine was indeed very weak. It turned out even now, when he remembered those days, his heart constricted with pain. Her elder brother said fortunately, when he started living with them, his condition quickly improved. Lorraine also said Thea taught him to write and helped him get rid of his stuttering habit. The emperor said his younger son Trail also started studying with him, but wasn't as good at studying as he was. Then he noted that in those days, they told Lorraine to call him and Ariel Mom and Dad. The middle son said with a smile at that time that those two brothers bullied him every day. For example, he could mention them putting a dress on him. Her father said they just wanted a daughter at that time. And so the day came when their daughter Serena was born. He said if she asked him which of the brothers was happiest about her birth, he would answer without hesitation it was Lorraine. And so, of course, when they met again, nothing had changed. After all, as in the past, Lorraine still loved his younger sister now. Until the moment the heroine returned to the past, her elder brother always looked after her. They constantly walked together and enjoyed each other's company. On one such day, the main heroine noticed her mother and immediately ran to her. Lorraine told his sister it was dangerous to run like that, and suddenly she tripped and almost fell. But at the last moment, their mother appeared and caught the girl. At the same time, she told her son Mommy had come. Then she asked the young man if it was hard for him to look after Serena alone. The young man said it wasn't hard at all, as Serena was so cute he was ready to admire her day after day. Ariel said with a smile that she also found Lorraine cute and was ready to admire them day after day. His younger sister also confirmed he was cute. At that very time, the young man became very embarrassed and covered his face with his hands. After that, her mother said they should go now, as Dad promised to join them for lunch. Together they agreed and immediately went as a trio. The girl was very happy, as she wanted to eat with everyone. Those were beautiful and precious days. But the Marquis often visited the imperial palace under the pretext of wanting to see Lorraine, and each time he tried to find a reason to send Lorraine back to him. And so the emperor sat in his study and received another message with demands. He became angry and said even impudence had its limit, and this was an absurd demand. Immediately he threw this paper into the fire. By the time Serena turned 5, the happy days of their family, which they thought would last forever, were shattered in an instant. All because of one incident accompanied by the Marquis's rebellion. One day, the main heroine was spending time with her mother. She said she wanted to see her brother Lorraine. Ariel told Serena her brother was practicing using magic now, so, if they disturbed him now, he would have problems. The girl looked at her daughter and thought she was just adorable. But at that very moment, she sensed danger and immediately turned her head in that direction. Behind her back, she saw some poisonous blades flying towards her and her daughter. There were quite a lot of them. Ariel immediately used her magic to protect herself from these blades, and they immediately fell to the ground. She said this was an assassination attempt. She also addressed the attacker, saying she didn't know which guild he was from, but he had chosen an opponent he couldn't handle. She also wondered if he was a fool who didn't know who the empress of this country was. The heroine was frightened at that time, but looking around, thought there was no one there. The heroine's mother said he was hiding really well, like a coward. She only had to attack, and he would be finished. Suddenly, a man appeared from the bushes, and the girl asked who he was. She also wondered what fearless person had sent him. Ariel thought it really seemed to her that scoundrel had thrown knives using mana, not his physical strength. But now, she didn't understand why she didn't feel any magical power emanating from him. The girl couldn't understand what game he was playing now. So, this mysterious man possessed unusual magic. Suddenly, the heroine addressed her mother and said her brother Rain was approaching. The young man was indeed nearby and waved to his sister and mother. The girl noticed this and realized it was very dangerous, so she told Lorraine not to approach them. At that time, that mysterious stranger took advantage of Ariel being distracted and immediately made his attack. The girl had no choice but to use her magic for protection. The main heroine was frightened and asked her mother if she was okay. Because Ariel used protection, her strength decreased. So the attacker used his magic again and with its help grabbed the girl. So it happened that a moment later, the main heroine was in the hands of the mysterious attacker. Ariel immediately shouted for the young man to return her daughter to her immediately. He asked if she still didn't realize what situation she was in now. So, if she made the slightest mistake, the girl would die right now. At that time, she wanted to use her magic to attack the stranger. But then she stopped and asked if his target was the princess or the entire imperial family. The stranger asked why she thought that. Ariel said now was the time to decide on the crown prince's title. So, he must have been ordered to kill all members of the imperial family except Lorraine. He was standing aside and very worried about his mom and Serena. The attacker said that was correct. As an example, the princess would die in the most painful agony. The girl heard this and said he was simply a scoundrel. The young man asked if a mage of her level should know about a dark sorcerer. The girl told him to immediately step away from her child, but he continued, saying that as a great archmage, she was, of course, well informed about everything. As the Empress, she should know that shadows and curses were unique abilities only of a dark sorcerer. At that moment, the heroine wanted to say something to her mother, but her strength left her, and she immediately lost consciousness. At that moment, the dark sorcerer used his power and pushed the girl away. At the same time, he said he was very interested in how long it would take for the curse to reach this child's tiny heart. He also told Ariel to watch her daughter die in her arms. So it happened that with his power, he returned the girl to her mother. The Empress was very frightened for her daughter and begged her to wake up, but she was unconscious and didn't respond. After that, the mother carefully examined her daughter and realized it wasn't too late to save her. That's why she immediately turned and addressed Lorraine. She told him to go to his father immediately. He, in turn, wanted to object to her, but the woman immediately interrupted him. She said he should go quickly and tell him to take care of protecting Theo and Trail. Lorraine didn't want to leave his mother at all, but agreed and ran with tears in his eyes. While all this was happening, that dark sorcerer disappeared using his magic and left the girl to die. The Empress now looked at her hand and saw a trace of that dark magic still remained. The heroine was in her arms, and she thought, if only Serena could hold on a little longer. After all, it turned out her mom would soon make everything as it was. And at that moment, the woman used her magic to teleport. At that very time, Marquis Purdon was in his study. A subordinate said the Marquis's era was finally beginning and congratulated him. But he said they could congratulate him only after not a single member of the imperial family remained. After all, the great emperor's end would come soon, and then their ruling era would begin. Suddenly, the man noticed a magical glow before him, and a woman with a daughter in her arms appeared there. He didn't expect this and was very surprised, asking if this was the Empress. That mysterious dark sorcerer was also in this very room. He was also surprised and thought how this woman had found his trail. That's why he asked how she had ended up here. Ariel told him he knew perfectly well who she was. Novices who knew nothing about dark sorcerers wouldn't have been able to find him, but she was different, as she knew them all. Then she asked, was he sent by the magic tower? It turned out magical forces were sealed, and when she saw the seal engraved on his body, she had no doubts about it. Precisely because of all this, she managed to track him down and rush here. The dark sorcerer was frightened, and immediately told the Marquis he hadn't said the girl was so strong. At that moment, the huge power of the Empress's magic burst forth. She looked very angry and seemed ready to tear them to pieces. The girls said they had only discussed her power but had never witnessed her using it, so of course, they knew nothing. They knew her as she was when she stepped onto the warpath. Then the Empress, using her magic, began attacking all the people in that room. They were very frightened of her and begged her to spare them all. The Marquis just watched what was happening and thought this was some nonsense. After all, the information given to him was completely different from reality. Ariel said they dared to disturb her without knowing what was what. What fools they all were. The Marquis thought, was this the Empress's true appearance? At that same time, the dark sorcerer was already struck down and lay on the ground writhing in pain. The Empress told him if he lifted the curse, she would show him mercy in the end. The dark sorcerer said that was all nonsense. He would never tell her how to dispel the curse. After all, the curse was cast on the princess not to be lifted later, and that was simply naivety. He said all this with great difficulty, as it was hard for him to speak. Then his interlocutor said he would die, and literally a moment later, she used her power and finished him off. Immediately after that, she headed towards the Marquis, and he told her not to approach, as he was the person who would become the future emperor. The girl said he was still spouting this nonsense. Then she asked if he thought he couldn't become emperor only because of his light hair. Purdon said that was indeed how it was. Then he asked if there was anything else in which he was inferior to Edwin. The Empress said he looked at people as things. He didn't care who might die if that death could satisfy his thirst for power. Now, because of him, a fatal end awaited the entire Purdon family. Neither his wonderful son, nor his wife, nor anyone would be able to get out of here alive. The Marquis began to beg her to stop doing all this, but the woman said it was already too late. Finally, she told him he had missed his chance himself. Immediately after that, she used her magic and disappeared from that place. A moment later, she teleported to the room where the emperor was with her sons. They were shocked by what they saw and started addressing her. They also addressed their younger sister Serena, but she didn't answer, as she was unconscious. After Trail saw his little sister, he asked Theo why Serena's legs looked like that. Her father approached the unconscious girl and stroked her cheek. At the same time, he begged her to open her eyes and say, "Daddy." The Empress also cried and begged Serena to forgive her, as she was very sorry. Edwin felt great pain in his soul and thought that because of his dealings with his brother, his dear family was suffering. So, he should have killed the Marquis earlier. After that incident, the Emperor searched the entire empire to find a way to break the curse. However, the existence of dark sorcerers was rare, and few even knew about their existence. Besides, at some point, a rumor spread throughout the empire at the speed of light that the princess was casting a curse on the entire country. Currently, only the imperial family knew Serena was cursed. So this must be the work of the surviving remnants of the Marquis's henchmen then. Seeing all these news, the emperor became angry and shouted who dared to spread such nonsense, touching the princess's name. That's why he ordered everyone arrested, as he would personally assign them severe punishment. A subordinate told him that nevertheless, people feared the damage the princess's curse could cause. That's why a petition was filed at the noble court to expel the princess from the empire. These words angered Edwin even more, and he asked who wanted to expel whom now. Then he said he had apparently been too soft a ruler all this time. The subordinate immediately apologized to His Majesty and asked him to moderate his anger a little. The emperor told him not to utter the words "noble court" in his presence again. He said he would obey the ruler and wouldn't do so. Edwin was at a loss and didn't know what to do. He thought that although his daughter was dying at that moment, he, as the emperor and her father, couldn't do anything. After some time, he went to the room where his daughter lay, and Ariel sat over her. The man told the girl to go and get at least a little sleep, but she didn't even want to listen to him and said a curse couldn't be transferred like a disease. The emperor addressed her again, but she shouted at him that she had already said the curse didn't infect others like some infection. The man told her to calm down, as he knew all that perfectly well too. After that, he hugged her, and the girl said how could she calm down? After all, it turned out everyone wanted to kill their child. The emperor told her he would solve this problem and not let their little one die. Also, it turned out she would find a way to dispel the curse, so he begged the girl not to cry. She still kept crying and addressed him. With great sadness and tears in her eyes, she asked what bad this child had done. She didn't understand why this happened and said it would be better if she were cursed instead of her daughter. The man immediately kissed her and, addressing her, told her to trust him. After all, he would surely protect both the children and her. However, despite everything, the panic among the masses continued to grow, and the negative reaction of the nobility turned towards the imperial family. One evening, the emperor returned home and didn't find his daughter there with Ariel. On the table, he noticed only a note and read it. The girl apologized to him and said she would definitely return to him. So it happened that the mother, taking her daughter, disappeared. From that day on, the emperor searched for his daughter and Ariel all over the world. If a rumor reached his ears that similar people were seen somewhere, he immediately went there. Over time, his impatience turned into deaf melancholy. But he still steadfastly endured these amazing feelings, drawing in his mind pictures of the two of them living happily somewhere with smiles on their faces, and he firmly believed in such thoughts. That's how a whole 7 years flew by. Even on that very day of their meeting, he was returning back, having failed to find them. But at one moment, while riding in his carriage, he heard his spouse's voice. That's why he immediately ordered his subordinates to stop the carriage immediately. Then he ran out of it and headed in that direction. That's why he immediately ordered his subordinates to stop the carriage immediately. Then he ran out of it and headed in that direction. Hoping what he heard wasn't a hallucination, he desperately ran in the direction where her magic was felt. He ran, and at the same time begged for the girl to be there after all. Hoping what he heard wasn't a hallucination, he desperately ran in the direction where her magic was felt. He ran, and at the same time begged for the girl to be there after all. Hoping what he heard wasn't a hallucination, he desperately ran in the direction where her magic was felt. He ran, and at the same time begged for the girl to be there after all. Finally, after some time, he reached that very hut where the main heroine had lived all this time with her mother. He immediately opened the door, hoping to see Ariel and his own daughter Serena. But what he saw shocked him and made him very sad about everything. Now Edwin told his daughter it was all his fault, as if only he could have kept them, this wouldn't have happened. The main heroine told her father that wasn't so at all. He wasn't to blame for what happened. Then the emperor said he found only Ariel's diary in the empty house. To be precise, it was a research report related to their daughter's curse. Time flowed like water, and her young body continued to be tormented by that very curse. That's why Ariel chose the last possible option to save her own daughter. She used magic and transferred her curse onto her own body. Edwin asked, wasn't she a foolish and reckless mother after all? The main heroine only cried in her own father's arms at that moment. But he kept saying that simply because the curse only affected living beings, she used her own life. The girl's brothers were also sad at that moment, and Thea said that's exactly why she was their mom. The emperor continued his story further. He said that with her remaining magical power, Ariel turned back time and revived her decomposed body. That's why they all thought the girl didn't know about what happened. Theo apologized to his sister for lying to her. Also, Lorraine said they simply thought she remembered nothing. At that second, Trail said with tears in his eyes that the war believed her brother's feelings for her were sincere. He said he thought about her every day constantly, and in general, his words meant sincerity. Suddenly, the main heroine cried even more heavily, and everyone was shocked. She said she didn't even know all this. So, Dad and her brothers must have been very sad, but they kept it all inside because of her. So the girl asked them not to hide anything from her anymore. Her father said he completely agreed with all that. He also added that be it sadness or pain, they should share everything together. And all because they were one family. After this conversation, time passed, and the emperor looked out the window. He thought about Ariel and why she had to make such a choice after all. It would have been better if he had suffered unbearable pain. Every time the man thought that she alone experienced immense fear, trying to save their child, his heart broke from pain. If he had given up when she rejected him the first time, perhaps she would be happy now. Then the man looked carefully at his sons and daughter sleeping near him. He smiled and thought that even if he had regrets in his soul, he wouldn't miss the second chance given to him. After all, it turned out he would protect those the girl had entrusted to him. After some time, the main heroine was running along the corridor of the mansion they lived in, and a maid ran after her. The girl, she said it was dangerous, and she shouldn't run. The heroine apologized to May, but thought it wasn't dangerous at all because 4 special people protected her. The first of them is her father, who is the emperor of a great state and has a lot of work. Edwin tells his daughter she should eat lots of vegetables. The second busiest is her eldest brother and crown prince, named Theo. He tells his sister it's dangerous to walk alone, so she should walk near him. There's also the outstanding imperial mage, who is her second eldest brother and named Lorraine. He tells the girl if she doesn't understand something, she should ask him anytime. And despite his young age, the commander of the first night squad is her third eldest brother, named Trail. Sometimes people address him, but he says he's busy because he thinks Serena is a real angel. So all these people are her special family, with whom she shares her second life. So the girl was talking with one man, she wondered if they would really serve pastries. She asked which ones, but her interlocutor couldn't answer, as he was embarrassed. At that moment, her elder brother picked the girl up and said he heard they made pastries with lemon syrup today. The heroine said that was just great, and they needed to go there quickly. When they came to where they were supposed to eat, there was no one there. The girl was happy and said they were the first there, but her brother didn't quite like that and said he understood everything. With his cold gaze, he said they all dared to be late for the lunch Serena was so eagerly awaiting, and he simply had no words. The girl said that wasn't so, as she wasn't particularly hungry yet. But Theo said being late was being late, so there was no need to defend them, and the girl should start eating first. The girl became sad and said she still wanted to have lunch with everyone. Theo noticed this and said if that was her wish, so be it. Those were simply wonderful and happy everyday life. But all this continued until one person disappeared. After some time, after the heroine and her elder brother arrived to eat, the rest of the family members showed up. Her father said they were late and so apologized. The middle brother asked if the girl had waited long, and the younger one said she should have sat at the table first. Theo immediately said Serena had said she was hungry. At that moment, the girl wanted to address him, as she hadn't said that before. The middle brother and father became dejected, as they thought Serena was hungry and hadn't touched the food despite feeling hungry, and so it was all because of them. Suddenly Trail apologized and said he was busy preparing his squad for a military expedition. The girl asked what kind of military expedition it was he going somewhere? The young man said he was indeed leaving. His squad had to deal with bandit gangs operating on the Empire's border. The girl asked him when he would return. Her interlocutor said it would be in about a month. Then he realized he wouldn't see the heroine for a whole month, and getting angry, he said because of some scoundrels, he had to leave the castle for a whole month. Lorraine said Trail looked simply disgusting now. The emperor said the first squad, defending the Empire, should become even stronger. His son asked him if it was true that he had specifically increased this term. Lorraine at that time approached the girl and started feeding her some dish. He also apologized to the girl for being late. Still, he tried to free himself as quickly as possible, and so he wondered if the girl was very hungry. The heroine kept eating and thought it was simply delicious. Watching all this, Trail asked his father if he could endure a whole month without Serena. Edwin looked at him with a cold gaze and said 1 month seemed too little, and in that case, he would add another week. The main heroine at that time sat with a somewhat sad face and looked around the table in different directions. Her brothers noticed this and asked what was wrong with her. Her father asked, it seemed she was looking for something. Then he asked if that was so. The heroine immediately exclaimed there was no pastry with lemon syrup on the table. The emperor immediately hit the table and said, was she saying there was no pastry with lemon syrup? The chef immediately said the dessert would be served right away. But the man stopped him and said to bring all the pastries in the kitchen here. And so, after some time, all the desserts were on the table. The man said the girl should start with what she wanted to taste. Also, it turned out she might get an upset stomach, so he asked her to eat slowly. Her father and son watched as the heroine ate. Lorraine at that time fed her using his magic. He said he would give her the lemon pastry Serena liked so much. Then they continued eating until they were full. That very night, the main heroine's stomach hurt. The girl cried and told her father her tummy hurt. The man immediately noticed this and said to call the physician to him immediately. The girl kept crying. She felt very unwell, so the man said it wasn't necessary, as he would go to the infirmary himself. Then the man kept hurrying the physician and asked what was wrong with the girl. He, in turn, asked him to wait at least a little bit. After some time, he said she had a cold, as children often got sick at her age, and indigestion was one of the symptoms. It turned out he would give her medicine, and the princess had a very sore throat, so she should eat only soft food for some time. The man asked if there were any other precautions and if it was dangerous. He wondered if her condition could develop into a serious illness. The physician said if the girl systematically took the medicine during meals, she would recover quickly. And even if the princess refused to take the medicine because of its bitter taste, she still had to complete the course of treatment. The emperor said he understood everything and asked the physician to prepare the best medicine for his daughter. The girl at that time was fantasizing that she simply couldn't stand anything bitter tasting. So it happened that her father took care of his daughter all night long. The girl still liked spending time with her father, but she didn't want to take the medicine, as she hated anything that tasted bitter. Her father told her she couldn't take the medicine on an empty stomach. Also, her elder brother was in the room, who was quite sad and understood what a difficult position it was. He asked the girl if she could look at her brother and eat one more spoonful. It turned out her middle and younger brothers were also in the room. Lorraine said if Serena ate one more spoonful, he would show her magic. Trail, in turn, said she was much braver than he was, so she could manage to eat it all. The young men supported the girl and said the plate was almost empty, as it was excellent work. Serena was a good girl, and it was simply amazing, as she needed to make a final push and finish eating. Thanks to the family's clear care, the girl recovered in just 3 days, and she said goodbye to bland porridge and bitter medicine. Although her whole family regretted they wouldn't get to take care of her anymore. Nevertheless, they said they were much happier to see the girl in good health. And so the heroine sat and thought she had gained weight. Lorraine was next to her and said they had big problems, as she became more and more beautiful every day. But the girl didn't hear him and cried out sadly that she was ugly. The emperor immediately said what was he hearing, as Serena was simply beautiful. Also, her elder brother sat near her and said her father was absolutely right this time. Trail also joined the conversation and said they were all speaking correctly. After all, he also hadn't seen anyone in the empire more beautiful than Serena. So, she was beautiful both in face and soul. After the girl heard all this, she immediately ran away and said she knew nothing, as she would go for a walk. The young men just looked at her and thought she was adorable. The emperor addressed Trail and told him to go for a walk with her today. After all, he would soon have to go on his military expedition. His son asked his father if he liked making fun of his own son at such an age, but Edwin said he still wouldn't see her for a whole month, so he shouldn't miss his chance. Trail turned around to run but finally said they would continue the conversation when he returned. And so a moment later, he ran to the girl, grabbed her joyfully, and said he caught her. The girl saw it was Trail and became sad. After all, she knew that while she was sick, the date of his departure was approaching. The young man noticed his little sister had become sad and asked why she was so downcast. And the heroine at that time thought that starting from tomorrow, she wouldn't see Trail for a whole month. That's why she immediately turned to her brother and hugged him very tightly. Lorraine noticed this and immediately came over to use his video sphere. Her brother noticed this and wanted him to return the video sphere to him quickly. The girl asked her brother if he would return quickly. She also wondered if anyone would wound him. He said, of course, no one would wound him as he was very strong. So, he would return safe and sound as quickly as possible. The heroine thought that because he answered with tears in his eyes, her worry for him only increased. After her thoughts, the heroine told her brother to return as soon as possible, and he agreed to that. Then Trail apologized and said he had to go to complete the final preparations. The heroine said she understood everything. Finally, the young man said they would see who would outdo whom, as he would definitely take revenge upon returning home. The girl asked what he was saying. The young man became embarrassed and said he didn't mean to say anything, as she simply mustn't catch a cold. That's why she should go inside quickly. After his words, the girl immediately turned around and told her brother that when he returned in a month, they should go for a walk again like today. In his soul, the young man was angry and thought how he could go somewhere, leaving her here, and he really didn't want to leave. But he didn't show it and told the heroine they would definitely do that. When his little sister left, Trail raised his hand and told his brothers and father they would see who would have the last laugh. Still, he would definitely return home as quickly as possible. Also, the young man promised Serena her brother was capable of doing all this. Several people in Trail's squad were discussing just that. One of them asked his interlocutor what that was and why a chill ran down his spine. His interlocutor said for some reason he felt this military campaign wouldn't be an easy one. After some time, the main heroine sat sadly in the room with her father. He asked why Serena was sad. The girl addressed her dad and asked if Brother Trail was strong. Her father asked if she meant if he was strong as a knight, then yes, definitely. Although he was still quite young. But still, he had already become a commander stronger than any other knight. After him came Theo. The girl thought in confusion, was he really young? So she asked her father how old her brother was. Her father said he was 15, although you couldn't tell by his height. After all, Theo and Lorraine weren't tall at his age either. At the same time, the emperor thought perhaps it was a consequence of Trail's desperate desire. One day, the young man was training with his elder brother. He told him it was time to finish the training. The younger brother said he could still do it. Then Theo said he was still too small, so he didn't need to overexert himself. His brother shouted, couldn't he do it only because his body was too small? He also added that still, he had to grow faster like his brothers and become much stronger. Then he would be able to protect, see his mom, and Serena. Edwin became sad and thought it felt like all this was said just yesterday. Suddenly, the girl addressed him and asked what happened next, as she wanted him to tell about her other brothers too. The emperor immediately agreed to that. Theo is now 19. Having become crown prince at 13, he was responsible for state affairs. His coming-of-age ceremony would be soon, and for Theo, it was both a joyful and sad event. So, the young man always thought he needed to finish work quickly and go for a walk with Serena. Lorraine is 18 and studies magic with the Imperial Palace sorcerers. Only Lorraine among their family members has a talent for magic. Sometimes he also helps the emperor and Theo with their duties. The young man often thinks which spell to show the girl at their next meeting. Then Edwin continued his story. He said his dear little daughter loved fresh fruit more than sweets. She, as a rule, was picky about food, so it was a bit difficult for him to decide what he wanted to eat. The girl immediately thought why the conversation had taken a completely different direction. The emperor said although walking in the fresh air was useful, it seemed to him she needed to engage in a more active sport. But the girl was still too young for heavy athletic training, and he was overcome with doubts. In this, he thought it would be better to start with exercises for developing fine motor skills. Suddenly, the girl addressed him and said her eyes were closing. The man said he understood everything, and so his dear daughter should go to sleep quickly. Finally, the girl only wished her dad good night. The next day, the squad that was supposed to go on the mission had already gathered near the exit. All preparations for his departure were ready. The middle brother was with the younger one and told him everything was ready. Trail thanked him for that. Lorraine told him to be careful, as there was nothing wrong with caution. Theo was also there, who said it would be very humiliating if the Imperial Knights commander suffered at the hands of some bandit gang. Trail said for him, the campaign to eliminate bandit gangs was the same as a walk in the garden. His elder brother asked if that was true. After all, when he returned, they would need to check if there were any scratches on his sword. the younger brother said he could look as much as he wanted. Their father joined their conversation and said he hoped he would return without any shameful wounds. Trail thought they were really two of a kind. Then he told his father he shouldn't say such words at least. Then he addressed Serena and said her brother would be back soon, so she needed to wait just a little bit. Their father joined their conversation and said he hoped he would return without any shameful wounds. Trail thought they were really two of a kind. Then he told his father he shouldn't say such words at least. Then he addressed Serena and said her brother would be back soon, so she needed to wait just a little bit. At that moment, the girl turned her face to her father to hide it. At the same time, she told her brother to take care of himself and eat well. At that moment, she thought she mustn't cry because if she cried, Trail would become sad too. Then she said he should return as quickly as possible and at the same time started crying. Suddenly, her brother addressed her and asked if she could look at him. After that, he said with a smile on his face that she had forgotten about promising to go for a walk with him when he returned. After all, it turned out he would be home very soon. The girl looked at him and said she definitely wouldn't forget. Trail said he really knew that, as their Serena was a very smart girl. So, he would rush back to her like a bullet so she shouldn't cry. At that moment, he leaned towards the girl and kissed her on the cheek. Her father and the rest of her brothers were shocked by his action. Finally, the young man only waved his hand at them and said goodbye. Then he jumped on his horse, and they set off on their mission with the group. After some time, the heroine was at the table with her father and brothers. At the same time, she said when she was sad, sweets were the best solution, so she would eat all this with great pleasure. The emperor looked at her intently and told Serena to eat everything slowly. At that time, he thought, did it turn out Serena cried because of that scoundrel Trail? Her elder brother asked if her throat was dry. At the same time, he wondered if he should also pretend he was going somewhere. Lorraine was also in thought and wondered what excuse he could come up with. At the same time, he said he was full just from watching his little sister eat. Although the girl was eating, she was still quite sad. She thought Trail still promised to return safely, but she also wanted to help him somehow. After the girl ate, she left the room, and the subordinates saw her sad. A maid told Her Highness that if she was overcome with worry, how about writing a letter? The girl asked if Trail would like that. Her interlocutor told her she was sure His Highness would be very happy, and also, perhaps, seeing the letter, he would return much earlier. Then the heroine asked if that was true. Then she addressed May and said she needed paper and a pen. The girl said she would prepare everything right away. At the same time, she thought she was very happy to see the princess in good spirits again. The girl told her this would be her first experience. After some time, they gathered again to eat. Her father addressed the girl and said he heard she would write a letter to Trail. The heroine looked at him in surprise, as she didn't understand why he was asking that. At the same time, the man was angry, as he thought his son was simply lucky. Still, how dare he receive a letter from Serena before his own father? The heroine said she really wanted to write a letter. Her elder brother and middle brother also heard this and were shocked. After all, they thought, did she really want to write a letter to their younger brother? Still, envy was hitting them very hard. Her father asked if she was good at it. Immediately the girl became sad, and she said the letters were scattering in different directions, so it wasn't turning out well. Edwin asked if they were really scattering in different directions. After that, he asked the girl, then how about practicing writing letters? His daughter asked what he meant. His sons realized at that time what their father's real goal was. The emperor said if it was too hard for her, it wasn't necessary to force herself. The girl said it wasn't hard at all, but her handwriting really looked strange. That's why she was a bit embarrassed. The man told Serena that in a letter, the sincerity between the lines was important. So, if the girl wrote a letter from the bottom of her heart, he thought he would be immensely happy. At that time, the man thought her dad would gladly drink even poison tea if the girl gave it to him. His sons thought at that moment their father's face showed what he was thinking about. The girl thought about the words that sincerity was important in a letter. So she said she would try to write a letter containing her sincere feelings. The emperor thanked her for that. Then he asked if he could look forward to her first letter with anticipation. At the same time, the man was happy and eager for it. His sons thought at that moment they would simply die of envy. The main heroine addressed them at that moment and asked if she could write letters to her brothers too. After some time, she went to write all these letters. Thinking about what she should write, she ended up spending the whole day on the letters. In the end, the girl was tired but said she had finished. A maid was in the room and told Her Highness she had done a simply wonderful job. The girl thought she really hoped that one day she would manage to easily express her sincere feelings in a letter. The maid asked if she was prepared should they go to the addressee. The heroine said yes, and they should go to Dad. After some time, the heroine approached the room where Emperor was. The guards noticed her and asked what Her Highness the Princess was doing here. The girl said she had come to see her dad, so one of the guards said he would immediately report her visit to His Majesty. At that very moment, the man came out of the room and asked if Serena was waiting to meet him outside. The guards were shocked and thought his intuition was really frightening. The girl immediately handed the handwritten letter to her dad. He took it in his hands and asked if the girl had come all this way to deliver the letter to him. The heroine said she wanted to hand it over as quickly as possible, so she apologized for distracting him from his work. The man said she didn't need to apologize, as he had just become free, so it would be better not to stand here but to go inside, drink tea, and read the letter. The girl was very embarrassed about this, as she was worried about what was written. That's why she immediately turned around to run away from there. Finally, she told her father she would go for a walk in the garden and return soon. She also shouted that Dad must read her letter in complete solitude. He should do so without fail and necessarily at her request. The man was surprised and thought what on earth the girl had written in the letter. And the next moment, he quickly skimmed the letter to see what information was there. His eyes were drawn to the line where it was written that the girl loved her father. That's why he immediately rushed to catch up with his daughter. Soon he caught up with her and told Serena to stop. The girl turned her head in surprise and noticed him. At the same time, she didn't understand why her father had run up to her so quickly. The man picked her up and said joyfully that he felt the same feelings as she did. After all, he loved her so much it was impossible to express even in words. After that, they hugged each other tightly, and the emperor asked the girl to keep this conversation a secret from her brothers. She immediately agreed to that. After that very day, the heroine felt warm in her soul, as if she continued to be in her father's embrace. The days in the imperial palace flew by at an incredible speed, and so a week passed since her brother Trail's departure. The maids looked at her all this time and thought what to do, as the princess looked gloomier and gloomier every day. One of them asked Her Highness where she would like to go for a walk today. The girl said sadly that today she wanted to go to the Palace of the Sun, and the maid agreed to that. After that, the main heroine went outside with May. She walked along the road and thought, had the letter not reached its addressee, or perhaps Trail was too busy, so he had no time to write her a reply. But still, she missed her brother very much. While the girl was thinking about all this, she heard some voices around her. Immediately she thought, were those children's voices? Then she addressed the maid and asked who had visited the palace. The girl told her His Grace Archduke Sparado had arrived at the palace. The heroine said she still heard strange children's voices coming from that direction. May said probably His Grace's children were there. He had a son and a daughter about the girl's age. Then she asked how about going there and exchanging greetings with them. The girl asked, exchange greetings? After all, could she really do that? The maid said, of course, she could do that, as she should be greeted first. According to the rules, the person of lower social status should greet first. The heroine said she understood everything. At the same time, she thought how complicated it was to follow the imperial palace's rules. So, she was exchanging greetings with someone for the first time, and on top of that, they had to greet her first. So she was worried how she should act. The girl walked a little, and suddenly someone addressed Her Highness. She raised her head and saw a young man there. He said he thought no one was here, so he acted somewhat impolitely. Then the young man bowed and apologized for the belated greeting to Her Highness. He greeted the little star of the empire, and his name was J. Sparado. This young man's sister also appeared, who also bowed and introduced herself, saying her name was Lisa Sperato. The main heroine was very worried at that moment and thought she should probably introduce herself too. With embarrassment and fear in her voice, she said her name was Serena Rabin Levashin. Jay addressed her and asked the girl to treat them more indulgently. After all, compared to what he had heard from his father, the girl was much more beautiful. At that time, his sister made a sharp dash towards the main heroine. Then the girl asked Her Highness if she was a fairy or perhaps an angel. Although, probably not, as she lacked wings, but she didn't understand how a person could be as beautiful as she was. The heroine was very embarrassed and worried even more, so she wanted to address her. But Lisa didn't stop talking. She said Her Highness's eyes shone like dew fallen on green foliage, and her hair was beautiful, and she was probably the spring fairy. Otherwise, how could such beauty even exist? Besides, she even felt a floral scent coming from her body. At that moment, her brother told the girl to stop all this. But Lisa asked what she should stop, as how could she calm down when she was near such indescribable beauty? Then she said Her Highness was perfect from head to toe. Jay approached his sister and covered her mouth, saying she should stop chattering already. After that, the young man apologized to Her Highness. Then he said Lisa still wasn't good enough at adhering to etiquette when communicating with strangers. The girl at that very time wanted to say something, but her embarrassment wouldn't let her do it. And so the young man asked if everything was all right with Her Highness the Princess. Because of her embarrassment, the main heroine immediately started running. Finally, she only said she was very pleased to meet them. Jay told his sister it was because of her that the princess got scared. She said what could she do if she was so beautiful? The young man said her habit of throwing herself at everything beautiful needed to be corrected. At the same time, he thought he had definitely heard this girl was 12 years old. Suddenly, these children's father appeared and asked them if they had looked around the palace. His son said it was indeed a beautiful place. And the man added to him that, of course, the imperial castle was beautiful. Then they all went together, and Jay said they had even briefly crossed paths with Her Highness the Princess. Lisa added that they had also greeted each other. The man said so that's how it was for them. Suddenly his son asked, but he had heard the girl was 12 years old. The Archduke thought the girl probably looked younger than her peers now. Then he told his son there were certain circumstances for that. Also, he would like them to become good friends with the princess. The young man thought his father was usually indifferent towards other people, but now he didn't understand why he acted differently. The girl addressed her father and said she liked the princess very much, as she was so beautiful. Then she asked if the princess would be present at Miss Chelly's tea party, and if so, she would go there too. The man asked if she was so partial to beautiful people. The girl said, of course, that was so, and her father wasn't handsome at all. The Archduke, hearing this, just laughed and at the same time said what a pity. Then he asked if in her eyes he wasn't particularly attractive. The girl said that was exactly so, as she didn't like him at all. He had a massive body and looked scary. The man said even if his appearance wasn't ideal, thanks to him, such works of art as his children had appeared in the world. Lisa immediately shouted that wasn't true, as they were their mother's works of art. Her father told her not to shout, as it made her look very unattractive at that moment. The girl added that seeing how petty he was, she realized the difference between his character and the princess's. Jay immediately thought that Her Highness the Princess, contrary to rumors, was not at all like he had imagined her. She was, after all, a member of the imperial family, but he didn't understand why her emotions were written clearly on her face. The moment she looked at him, her face showed she was about to burn up from shame, as it embarrassed her very much, yet she had to greet him. The young man thought this girl was a princess who was the same inside and out. Indeed, for him, she was a very interesting person, and so he wondered if he could get to know her better at their next meeting. After some time, Lisa sat at the table, as the very tea party she had talked about with her father was taking place. Other children there were talking about some strange stories. The girl thought, were they seriously finding something funny in that story? So, the girl had taken her mother's word for it and specifically came here, but there wasn't even a shadow of the princess here. At that time, other girls started talking about that very unusual and rather strange person. Then one of the girls said, as far as she knew, they had also sent an invitation to that strange princess. The princess who was cursed, disappeared, and unexpectedly reappeared completely healthy. Although voices said the curse disappeared thanks to God's love, a rumor about the empress was spreading in parallel. She was caught causing harm to others and committed suicide, as a result of which the curse was dispelled. Lisa thought, were they whispering behind her back as if the rumor was true, and she thought they were just nasty creatures. Chelly said she really wanted to invite the princess, but she was immediately refused. It seemed to her that at this tea party, the princess, who had endured so many hardships, could find solace, but apparently she had gone too far. The girls said she was really kindness itself. Someone said, how could the princess reject Chelly's friendly gesture? It was so upsetting. Another interlocutor said that was exactly right and asked Miss Chelly not to take her refusal too much to heart. Chelly said she was fine, as perhaps the princess felt uncomfortable in such a place. Her interlocutor said maybe she just lacked manners since, as they said, she grew up in a peasant family. Although perhaps she was simply too weak for trips outside the palace. Lisa was on the verge of losing her temper at that moment, but she tried to calm herself down and hold back, and at the same time endure a little. When suddenly Chelly stood up and asked if that meant the curse still remained in her body. At that very instant, Lisa couldn't stand it and immediately jumped on the table. Everyone was surprised and asked what she was doing. The girl immediately asked Chelly if she had even seen the princess at all. When you knew nothing, even one wrongly said word was enough to lose your head. And so she asked, weren't they familiar with the postulate about defaming the imperial family? After all, they should only open their mouths if they had some irrefutable facts. Those present couldn't believe their words and immediately shouted what impolite words those were. Lisa asked why it was like that, as she had simply said what was on the tip of her tongue. After all, they were also making fun of others nonstop. But it turned out when they became the subject of discussion, it wasn't so fun anymore. Chelly sat there, literally bursting with anger at that moment. The girl headed for the exit and said she should never invite her again. Otherwise, next time it wouldn't be a teacup that got broken. At that very time, the main heroine was addressed and told His Majesty was calling for her. The girl asked if her father wanted to see her. She was told he wanted to talk to her about an arrived letter. The girl asked, a letter? And at the same time thought that perhaps Brother Trail had finally sent her a reply. The girl immediately jumped up and ran, and a subordinate told her if she ran, she would fall. That person would report her arrival to His Majesty, so she needed to wait a little bit. But the girl burst into the room and told her dad she was told a letter had arrived. Then she wanted to say something else, but saw an unfamiliar man who asked which dad she was talking about. The emperor at that time told Serena to come in quickly. The girl thought, who was this unfamiliar man? The heroine ran up to her father and immediately hugged him tightly. Her father asked if she had run here at full speed, as she could have come slowly. At that moment, the man in the room said he thought his presence had frightened the princess a little. Then the man told Her Highness he was pleased to meet her. He also introduced himself and said his name was Ian Sperato. In terms of titles, he was the Archduke of this empire. The girl told him her name was Serena Rabin Levashin. The man said his son had spoken about her. He also apologized for his young daughter's rude behavior. The heroine said he shouldn't do that, as on the contrary, she should thank her for showering her with compliments then. Her interlocutor heard this and thought even in such a situation, she was so kind and magnanimous. At the same time, he thought what was wrong with his own daughter's character. And so, he remembered the conversation with his daughter before leaving. The girl then asked his face if only he was going to meet the princess, as what about her? Her father said he was going to apologize for her rude behavior, and he also needed to discuss something else with His Majesty. Lisa shouted that she also wanted to see the princess. The man asked if, in her opinion, he was going to the palace to have fun. He also said, didn't she need to be at the tea party with Miss Chelly now? The girl shouted that her mother had made a huge mistake when she sent her there. The Archduke said he looked, the girl always quacked like a duck, completely without thinking about the meaning of her words. She said her father was also like a fish's head. Jay was listening at that time and thought it was just some kind of horror. The man asked what his daughter had just said. Was it really Fish's head and a worthless father? He was thinking that even though she was his daughter, how could she even be loved at all? The emperor at that time told the man he had told him so. He asked what this was about now. So, yesterday his daughter said she didn't need friends because she had him. The Archduke immediately thought, why didn't he have such a daughter? The heroine, in turn, didn't expect to hear such words and thought why her father was behaving like that. Ian thought if only someone would look at this cunning fox, as he had called him precisely for this. Then he said if you thought about it, his son had said he wished to meet Her Highness personally and apologize. He wanted to do so as he still felt uneasy after parting with the princess in such a manner. And so he wondered what Her Highness thought about this. The main heroine said, on the contrary, she should be the one to apologize, all because she shouldn't have run away then. The man said her heart was beautiful too, as she was completely unlike His Highness. At that time, the emperor and the archduke looked at each other with cold glances. After that, Edwin moved his daughter aside and said the conversation had gone completely in the wrong direction. Also, he told the girl he had only called her because a letter from Trail had arrived. The girl asked with joy on her face if her brother had sent a reply. He said yes, and she should take the letter and return to her room. The girl immediately took it and thanked her father very much for that. Before leaving, the heroine addressed Duke Ian. He asked what she wanted. The princess said she was very pleased to meet him. The man bowed before her and said the honor of seeing the princess was his too. After the girl left, the Archduke said she was really a very open personality. Then he laughed and said, to be more precise, she had finally blossomed. A citizen said, however, he had heard a commotion had arisen at Miss Chelly's tea party, to which the princess had been invited. Ian thought at that time that the atmosphere had lightened a bit, but everything was still as before. Then he said he had dealt with that situation personally. Edwin said if he had resolved it personally, then there were no more problems. The man wanted to say something about his son Jay, but the emperor said he was free to go. After all this situation, some time passed. The main heroine sat in her room and looked out the window, seeing that a lot of snow had fallen. At the same time, she knew that when they met her dad, there was also so much snow, and she probably needed to make a snowman. Suddenly the girl was addressed and told His Majesty was calling for her. The girl immediately went there and asked her dad what had happened, as even her brothers had gathered there. The emperor told Serena not to be too frightened and to listen to what he would say. After that, with sadness in his voice, he said Trail had disappeared. The girl couldn't believe his words and was very stunned by this situation. A moment later, the girl thought, had brother Trail really gone missing? Then tears immediately welled up in her eyes, and she said he promised to return. He told her he would come back as quickly as possible. The emperor immediately approached the girl and tried to calm her down. He told her not to worry, as knights were searching for him everywhere now. But the girl kept crying and said she was very scared. After all, what about the situation if her brother didn't return? Edwin said everything would be fine, and Serena shouldn't worry too much about it. Her brother Lorraine, who was also in the room, told Theo that last year something similar had happened several times. Her elder brother said indeed, a similar situation had occurred around this time 3 years ago. 3 years ago, the night squad reported Trail's disappearance. Theo was 15 then, and Lorraine was 14. Then her elder brother asked if Trail had really gone missing. The emperor said then, hadn't they managed to find him yet? If so, they should expand the search area. After all, they still had to find any traces of the prince. The subordinates immediately said they would obey His Majesty. The 3-day search operation yielded no results at all, so it happened that one night, Theo heard noise in the kitchen and found him there. Trail was 12 then and asked his brother as if nothing was wrong why he wasn't sleeping at such an hour. He also asked what he was even doing now. His elder brother was shocked and asked why he was here. He said he was the first to reach the palace, taking the shortest route. So now her elder brother said after that incident, he had appeared several more times as if out of thin air. He appeared so safe and sound that he even considered his worry completely groundless. The emperor, in turn, kept calming the girl down and said nothing terrible had happened. After all, this was none other than Trail. So, he would return to them safe and sound as if nothing had happened, as he always did.